Dale, and I am calling to order the regular session of the Humboldt Bay Harbor Recreation and Conservation District tonight, October 24th. I'd like to stand and do the pledge. Patrick, would you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I forgot the roll call. That's okay.
We can do that now. Commissioner Doss?
Here.
Commissioner Coleman?
Also here.
President Dale?
Here.
Commissioner Marks?
Yes.
And Commissioner Higgins?
Present.
Brian, I'd like to report out on closed session.
Sure. The board met on each item agendized, and there is no reportable action to report tonight.
Thank you. At this point in our agenda, I ask for public comment on items that are not on the agenda. You have that here? All right.
Robert, Marine Planning. Usually I'm the bearer of gloom and doom. Tonight I'm happy to stand here and think that with all the other things that are going on, yes, but I think that right now our harbor is a safer place. Our economy is a little bit better, and everybody in this room and everybody with the Harbor District deserves a thank you. And I know a lot of people think that it's not much, but I tell you what, it's huge. It's a step in the right direction. And thank each and every one of you. And I know I've been a pain in the ass to every one of you. And, it's a good day. Thank you. And now, for everybody else. Thank you.
Ken Swapsky, I assume that was a thank you for some dredging that got done?
Yeah, sorry about
Making
that.
an assumption there. And it's too bad that people have to be a pain in the ass so long, so after 2 or 3 years, they come and say thank you. That's just my opinion on the thing. Too bad you got some dredging done. We're all glad you got some dredging done. I wanted to talk a little bit about what I consider the public perception of what your mandate is, why you're here. And I talk later about how the public feels the money should be spent. Now, I believe that if I recall, you get $1 million or thereabouts in property tax. That's one of your biggest incomes you have coming in. So how does the public perceive that $1 million should be spent? Well, in closed session, I think you were looking at purchasing, 13 different parcels, or some negotiation was going on for that. That's not what the public thinks you're here for. Public thinks that $1 million should be used to subsidize small amounts necessary to do your dredging around the marina, to keep your rates down for your fishermen. You're here to facilitate the fishing community. You're here to make sure the boats can get in and out of here. And you're not here to take and subsidize one specific business. I'll be very direct, probably $200,000 per year by lower than market rates in the oyster business for one participant here, Chairperson Greg Dale's company work for. That's not what you're here for. You're going to hear from a lot of people, I think, from the fishing industry or people out here in the marina. That's what the money is to be spent on. Now, we can agree to disagree. You may think it's made to be spent for something else, acquisitions, development, big kind of things. That's not your mandate. Clearly, I mean, for those of us who've taken the time to go ahead and read what I refer to as your letters of incorporation, there's a different name for it. In the business world, that's what we have. And so you're going to get a lot of pressure to follow your mandate and to cease these other activities. Take care of the fishermen, take care of the people down in the marina here, and a good portion of that $1 million you get could be spent for that, to do the dredging we have to do and do these other things that are mandated. Read the name up there and see why this harbor was built out here, why the marina was built, and we're going to ask you to follow the mandate that you guys are supposed to be doing rather than going off on all these other tangents. Thank you.
Recently, a boat.
Can you state your name, please?
I'm sorry, my name is Stephen Backus.
Thank you.
Recently, a boat hit the back of my boat, causing damage to both boats. finding out more about it, this person had just bought the boat. He was not required to be on a waiting list. He was allowed to keep it here. Matter of fact, when he hit my boat, it was the very first time he was out on his boat. When I first came up here, I was told you were required to be on a waiting list. I think it's in your guidelines. This person wasn't because he was connected. When I approached the office and asked them the man's name or a phone number, they refused to give it to me. However, they gave that man my number. And then looking in the files, they gave him my wife's number at HSU, where he called and school wasn't in session. A month went by, your office was uncooperative to talk to me, to give me any information to facilitate this at all. I called the police would do nothing without any information from the office here. My boat is damaged now and his boat is damaged. He shouldn't have been here. If you're going to have rules, you should stick by them, or don't have the rule. I don't understand why this is acceptable to you, and why some rules you pick to observe, some rules just aren't important to you. My boat is important to me, and without the information on the person that hit me, there's not much I can do. So when you want people to have insurance, I'm unable to use mine because I'm not given any information. There was not a security guard here. When I came in, I was told you had security guards, and the camera doesn't work on the dock. So fortunately, there were people that were on their boats and saw the entire incident and made notes and let me know. But a month went by. I have my home phone written on my boat in case of emergency. This person didn't call me. Your office was of no help. So I just don't understand how this is supposed to work here then. When an accident happens and your office doesn't provide the information about who has that boat, or when they buy that boat, why aren't they made to go on a waiting list? Your bylaws are pretty specific.
The most troubling aspect of this to me is like a motor vehicle accident. He was wrong. Don't we provide information in that regard? No? Sorry, I'm out of order. But you should approach your staff again on this. I don't think this.
How many times did you think I should approach the staff?
Steve, this is the time to talk about things not on the agenda. And we're not allowed, we're not permitted to speak about these.
Yeah, I shouldn't have done that.
So I apologize. I will look into it, and we will be contacting you. Okay?
Thank you very
I
much.
promise you that. Anyone else care to speak on anything that is not on the agenda?
Is the budget on the agenda?
No, it's not.
Okay, well, I want to talk about the things that you have, some of the things that are proposed in the agenda. My name is
The
Matt
fee
Proposal.
schedule's on the agenda.
Pardon?
The fee schedule's on the agenda.
The fee schedules and what,
Yeah.
the things that are in there.
Yeah, fee schedule. If you want to talk about the fees, that's coming up later on in the meeting, but if you want to talk about things that are not on the agenda.
Okay, well, I don't know if this is on the agenda or not, but I personally believe, and you can tell me to stop and I'll sit down or whatever.
Okay.
But I personally believe that the electricity bills that are part of the marina should be part of the slip fees and not wasting your office management time, not wasting people's time going out and reading meters. There's a time when, before we had the electric meters put in, that we all paid a certain amount of fees. And that was the way it was done. And so we put meters in and we thought that was better. But it's not necessarily better. When they put 2 windows in at McDonald's, that didn't make service any better. It's still the same burger. Still comes out the same window, and you can put any damn number of feet, whatever. So now if you want to get down to the fact that we have a liveaboard fee, and you want to say that, we can, as a non-liveaboard, I can live here on my slip for 3 nights a week, but not for the other 4 nights, and that's what the liveaboard fee is for. Well, if I take the $125 fee that you wanted to charge, and I divided that in, it's approximately $4 a day.
We're getting into the fee discussion, that's coming up.
That's coming up?
Yeah.
So we can skip that part. So we're not gonna talk about the fact that liveaboards act more like your security because there is no security anymore. That liveaboards still pay for their services that, everyone else pays for. We pay for the $1 per shower. Takes me a little longer. I know it says 50 cents. There's only one shower, the other one's been broken. How long, Charlie?
Couple of years.
2 years. And then, we're not gonna talk about the other services that liveaboard fee was supposed to cover that you don't provide anymore. But that's in the fee discussion, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'll go sit down.
Thanks, Charlie, sir.
My name's Mark Thomas, I'm with the board, down in IDOT. And I'd like to touch on a little bit what Matt was talking about, was the security issues around here. Being a liveaboard, I'm here at times 24/7. And I'll get up late at night, or I do have work out on shore, so I get up early in the morning. I find numerous people out there camping in their vehicles. And sometimes it's not a big matter. They're here in the vehicle, they're taking off. A lady and her little girl wanted to have a safe place to spend the night, not a problem. There's people that come in, the vehicles break down, they can't move out anymore. Or they hide behind those, the 3 green shipping containers with kayaks and canoes. They like that dark spot over there by the trees. That's where we find used condoms. We found just 2 weeks ago, a bloody syringe, the hypertrophic syringes that get handed out, the diabetic ones, out in the parking lot. Last week, there was an SUV there at night, 3 individuals inside, and when they left little piles of Silly Street globs in the parking lot. Apparently, they're huffing the gas out of cans. I was told by the individual that walks at night up and down the docks to relieve his back injuries. He's had some former ties with the island. He's saying what he believes are HS2 students partying out in that far field on the other side of the newly fenced-in lot. We have these activities going on all night long. I know people, whether they're fishermen with the boats, other liveaboards, have had their vehicles broken into. Items stolen off the docks, items stolen off the boats. In the last 2 years that I've been here, there was that guy in the kayak that was kayaking in and taking stuff off the docks, apparently, or maybe some of the boats. There's a lot of this stuff going on, and there's nobody to police it, nobody to be out here and help us out. I've called EPD, the Eureka Police Department at times, and thankfully they generally make it out here, and they'll go and look around. But when we have drunk individuals yelling and having fights and stuff out here in the parking lots, which has happened also, by the time the police get out here, they may be in their vehicles driving off the island drunk. And it concerns me, especially like early in the morning when the fishermen and their crew are coming in. We've got stoned and drunk individuals trying to drive off the island, or even late at night. The security around here is non-existent, except for a few of us that just happen among these people and walk up and just say, hey, y'all need any help? Something going on? We can't chase them off the island ourselves. We're not authority for that. We need some kind of security out here, though, that's for sure. That's all we got.
Thanks, Mark. Other comments on items not on the agenda? Seeing none, I'm going to move into consent calendar.
Make a motion.
Second. Larry beat me.
So I have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. All opposed? Seeing none, communications and reports.
So you just want to scroll through real quick? So let's see, is that there's we got asked to go down to the Norwegian consulate's office in San Francisco to talk about potential port opportunities in the Bay, and essentially at the consulate's office, they're bringing in potential investors from Norway. And this was originated from the Nordic Aquaculture Project, kind of the connections, and then also the offshore wind industry. There's a significant amount of international interest in Humboldt Bay, and so just wanted to let you know that that's scheduled to be November 18th. And President Dale and Vice President Coleman and myself are going down there, along with, I believe, Virginia Bass from the County Board of Supervisors, Amy Melissa, the CAO, and another Economic Development staff member. You recall, the Board of Supervisors directed their staff to work towards the idea of providing some sort of financing mechanism to upgrade the infrastructure on the Samoa Peninsula so that we can attract businesses to come out here and use the port. We had a meeting this afternoon that was attended by the City Manager of Eureka, the CAO's office, Arcata, us, and as well as the Community Service District, and that we have all agreed to work together, and there's going to be a 10,000-foot report that will be prepared within the next 2 months on what it would take like and what would the organizational structure would be to kind of try to improve the infrastructure on the Samoa Peninsula. And so I'll keep you informed of those things. We got the sampling results back from the former pulp mill, the Redwood Marine Terminal 2, and it appears like they sampled the entire 30 acres, which is really in the heart of the pulp mill, and for a variety of different contaminants, heavy metals, dioxins, etc. And we're happy to report that none of the samples, not one sample, came up above the action level for an industrial property, which is really amazing for out there in that entire 30 acres in the heart of the former pulp mill. So that was really, really good news. And that was done through the US EPA Brownfield program. And so the EPA and the Water Board, all quality controlled samples. The lab sample results are up on the Harbor District's website right now. And we transferred those over to Baykeeper because they requested those, and so we sent them over copies of the samples as well. So I attended basically the CMAC conference. I'm on the board. Richard used to be on that, and we were primarily talking with all of the other ports and the Army Corps of Engineers about getting the funding for the dredging, the ongoing funding, and how the Army Corps can provide more consistent and more efficient levels of services. And so there should be the dollar amounts that come out for the allocation. Those should come out sometime in the next month or so. So we'll keep you informed of that. Commissioner Coleman and myself also attended the Offshore Wind Energy Conference, where we were looking at a whole variety of different businesses and kind of trying to educate ourselves on offshore wind. Was also able to go to the Norwegian consulate's office. They asked us to go to a presentation at their residence in San Francisco, and so we attended that as well. The Coast Guard, we're going to be doing another joint training with the fireboats and the Harbor District on October 28th and November 4th. It's with the fireboats, and then there'll be a helicopter kind of search and rescue kind of maneuvering. And then we're also continuing our cross-training with Humboldt Bay Fire with the fireboats and our staff to try to get some experience in better coordination with those. As we've said numerous times, the fireboat's a huge asset, and that we really want to make sure that we're as well trained as we possibly can. There was also an oil spill response training that took place off of Redwood Marine Terminal 1 on October the 9th. And then this morning, we went out. There's this boat that's been anchoring between Woodley and Indian Islands. And we served notice to the boat with the Sheriff's Department this morning that they're in violation of our anchoring, and ordered them to remove the premises within 72 hours. Per the Harbor District's ordinance, is that at this point, any fees or any charges or anything that we can assess and levy against the boat. And the key issues associated with this is that, they may not have adequate facilities, restroom facilities. This boat in particular, my understanding is that it was tied up on the Eureka side, the Eureka PD, actually it was underneath the bridge, then he got, Eureka PD told him he couldn't be there anymore, then they launched the boat in the marina, tied up against the Eureka side. Eureka PD told him he had to move. He went across the mud flat and was stuck in the mud. The Coast Guard tried to retrieve him, and he told him to essentially go away, and they heloed somebody off his boat. He was able to get free and then went to this location. He's currently a hazard to navigation because, especially early in the morning and at night, there's no lights, there's no warning systems. It's just a bad situation all around. And so we really appreciate the Sheriff's Department for providing us the support. And you can anchor in the bay up to 72 hours, but after 72 hours, it requires a permit from the Harbor District, and we have to verify a number of things before we can authorize anchoring in the bay beyond 72 hours. Then I'm going to just do this one last one, even though it's the facilities management. One of the big projects that we did the ocean outfall inspection, where we had the diving contractors were out there. And I must say that in the report, they complimented Alan Babolat and Robert Provolt. That was the crew out there. They did an outstanding job, and they said they were the most important members of the whole crew, and they couldn't have done it without the fireboats. We coordinated with the Humboldt Bay Municipal Water District, and we flushed 500,000 gallons of water through the ocean outfall while the divers were down there to really clear the ports and to make sure everything is working properly. So we did a 500,000 gallon flushing action. Then staff, it was really great for the staff because then we could visually monitor and see how the whole ocean outfall works at a high flush condition. And so the reason why that's important is because within the next year there'll be a new wastewater treatment plant that's being constructed on the Samoa Peninsula, and we're applying for and anticipating getting the permits in the next couple of months to use the ocean outfall for the town of Samoa wastewater treatment plant discharge. We're getting ready to do a follow-up training on this, and really to kind of get the bugs out, opening up the gate valves, getting the system operating. So I can't say enough about our maintenance staff. They've been great to work with, and I think we're all getting to know the ocean outfall a little bit more. And I don't know if you have anything else you wanted to add, Chris?
Well, thank you. Our team's been on it, and has done an amazing job of learning a very complicated piece of equipment and putting a lot of effort and time into not only working on it, but understanding the operation so we can be prepared to not only utilize it, to maintain it in the future.
Yeah, it was brought up in the Samoa Peninsula meeting that the representative from Arcata and Eureka, they all felt like the ocean outfall was a critical asset, and they were looking in long term of if eventually they may not be able to discharge the wastewater treatment plants into the bay, and was saying that in the long-term future, the ocean outfall may be the only asset for actually discharging the Arcata and Eureka wastewater into the bay. And so they all felt like this asset was really crucial that the district maintain it. Chris, do you want to?
Sure. So we had reported a while back that we were looking to install a sewer meter here at the island. It proved to be quite a process to get all the appropriate pieces and parts, and a vendor that was able to do it. But we installed a sewer meter here last Friday and tested it. No leaks. We're excited about that. We'll do another peek here at the end of this week just to make sure they're in 100%. But at this point, it appears to be working well. As everybody should know from our prior reports, by measuring our sewer, it won't be tied to our large water consumption here, and will reduce our costs significantly on a monthly basis. We've been power washing the docks after dredging, all the way down to the rub boards, trying to make things tip-top, and not only as a general maintenance, but as a thank you to all the tenants that really were patient with us and helped us through that process. We're performing various dock repairs right now, including taking some weldments and rollers and a few of the rub boards that are deteriorating. And then we've adjusted our harbor maintenance worker staff calendar to have 2 deep staffing on the weekends. So we've had just one for a period of time. So we're adding more staff, and in response to just general things we've seen and some requests from some tenants. So we're happy to be doing that. Down at the boatyard, this is a repeat picture, guys. I gotta tell you, I used this one last time, but such a good looking boat vessel there. We installed a new storm X drain and started to continue to improve our SWIP. We reported 2 meetings ago we're having a little bit of trouble with our wash water and our stormwater management down there. But we did some testing and found out we're doing a good job, so we invested in some products to make sure that we continue to exceed our best management practices. Adam helped quite significantly with that. That's a big steep learning curve for me. And Robert, who's here from our facility down there, he's really the leader on this thing. He's been doing the research and making recommendations to Adam and I as what we can do. He's also worked with Humboldt Community Services District, who of course takes our discharge, so hats off to Robert. We're getting a lot more hauls. We've been preparing for increased hauls and launches. We ended up with 2 flat tires on the travel lift. I'm happy to report they're both repaired. The travel lift's back in operation. It's going to be a busy day tomorrow. And right now, even more good news, we're obtaining some costs for demolition of our first few vessels using our SAFE grant. So we have a abandoned vessels grant, about $65,000 we can spend that was given to us or awarded to us by the state park. And we feel like we're ready to go. So we'll get rid of some vessels. And then Road Marine Terminal 1 and 2, we've been clearing up a lot of discarded crab pots at abandoned property from various persons around that facility. We're putting a request out to everybody to really realize that it's important we keep our property to ourselves and take care of our own spoils. Our folks spent about a week down there just cleaning up discarded property and improving the asset overall. We tried to make some more defined spaces in storage areas, so after crab season, we bring crab pots back. We'll have a better way to manage that stuff and keep everybody in their own spots. And finally, we installed a gate on the south end of the premises. We've had a lot of traffic and a lot of refuse dumping in there, so we built the gate. And another nice fabrication from our facilities crew. And then we report on a broken sewer line at RMT last month. It's repaired and it's working, and tenants were all happy. We're working with our tenant on some reimbursement. And one more time, hats off to our facilities crew. I don't know that everybody recognizes how hard they work and the amount of time and effort they put in, but each and every one of them is very committed. Thank you.
Do you have a regular report?
No, I don't.
That's all our reports.
Well, I'll move on to district council and
Just briefly, as I reported, I think 3 or 4 meetings ago, the court dismissed the lawsuit filed by the Humboldt Fishermen's Marketing Association and the Trinidad Association. That judgment has been entered, and the plaintiffs have filed a notice of appeal. So we will continue to represent the district through the appellate court.
that's it.
That's it.
Thanks, sir. Commissioners, Mr. Doss.
Let's see. We got some dredging done. That was the biggest part of distance from the last meeting to today. Pretty damn exciting. Phase 1 is good, and now we've already, before the dredge was out of here, we've already been talking about plans for the next dredge event. So.
I'm sorry, I can't hear anything you're saying. Can you speak up?
We dredged the Woodley Island Marina.
Thank you.
That's the part that I'm after there.
Excuse me, you dredged part of it.
And
You
what?
dredged part of it.
Part of it.
Part of it. Phase 1. We have a lot more to do, but that's completed. I've been involved with several committee meetings and several meetings with constituents on a lot of different topics. So I'm sure we'll hear about some of them tonight.
Mr. Coleman.
Thank you. As Larry mentioned, I went to the Pacific Rim Offshore Wind Energy Conference down in San Francisco. It was very interesting, and there is and continues to be a lot of interest in Humboldt Bay for a variety of uses and things. Also, there's some committee meetings and labor meetings that we've had. I was asked to give a presentation to the Arcata City Council and a Harbor District update, which I did last week. But the main thing I wanted to talk to earlier this week on Monday, I attended the signing ceremony for the final signing of the turning over of the remainder of Eureka City property on what's known as Indian Island to the Wheelock Tribe. And I was very honored to be invited to attend that, and just wanted to affirm in our role, or my role as a harbor commissioner in our district, having jurisdiction over the tidelands of Humboldt Bay, and that I think it's very appropriate that this happened. I think it's about time. I think the tribe, who has been here really since time immemorial, has been stewards of this bay. It's great to see them regaining some capacity to be stewards. As a lot of you know, I had a lot to do with the cleanup that happened on the portion of Indian Island that they owned, and I just want to say publicly that I think it's our responsibility to do all that we can to help facilitate their continued restoration and their continued growth in their capacity. And I was just really proud of the community that is able to do this at this time. It's a long time coming, and a small gesture to try and make things better and more right in the future for a lot of the atrocities and genocide that occurred.
Thank you. I share that opinion as well. Commissioner Wertz.
I actually was at the Arcata City Council meeting that Director Coleman gave his presentation. It was very well received, and he did a very good job. And as far as my position with the North Coast Rail Authority, I attended a meeting down in Hillsburg, and we made a resolution to accept some money to allow the organization to keep running long enough to do a transfer over to the Great Redwood Trail. And so that is really going to happen. And of course, there's been some questions what's going to happen in Humboldt County with the rail prism here. I don't think it's going to be piecemealed out, so I think it's probably going to be part of a trail system in the future.
Thank you. Commissioner Hagan.
Well, I've been paying a little bit of attention to the Humboldt Bay oyster lease, where there is some change in understanding of the ownership underneath one of our leases, and I'll be recommending that the board as a whole consider the issue because it's a complicated and interesting one. I've been working on the lower Eel River, and unfortunately the fall Chinook salmon run is starting slow, and the river is once again shallow, and their passage is perilous. Working with the Humboldt County Resource Conservation District to pursue funding from the National Marine Fisheries Service to make some salmon hotels, as it were, stabilize the banks, create pools so the fish can come in, and they stage for the whole Eel River Basin in Fortuna. If they can't get out of Fortuna, then we don't do well. But I've also been chasing water temperature probes and taking note of flow all over the basin, and there's a ton of steelhead. The May rains made the eel swell, and it's still viable through the entire summer for steelhead in a lot of the watershed. If we did water conservation and a little bit of rehabilitation of the watersheds, then every year could be like this, not just the years when we have extraordinary May rain. And my application to have the Eel River Recovery Project strategically extract large pike minnow, the non-native, used to be called a squawfish, has been, in their infinite wisdom, turned down by the Department of Fish and Game. And so we'll be appealing that, since there's broad appeal for most people to take down non-native invasive species that are predating upon the fishes that we want. So stay tuned. I don't think that's a rational decision given the department's policies and trout fishing game codes. But if you have any interest in that in particular, I'd be happy to share more information. And the Eel River Recovery Project's 2020 calendar has gone to press. It's got gorgeous windows on the Eel River, places you'd like to see, even if you don't want to be there. And so that'll be available later this month and also through the holidays. So thank you, Greg.
Patrick, thank you. And I don't have a whole lot to report. I spent a week in San Diego this last 2 weeks ago at the Interstate Shellfish Sanitation Conference. It was riveting. Other than that, I don't have a whole lot to, other than I believe the power was turned off. It was the highlight of my month. I know it wasn't the highlight for everybody. Sounds like we may have another one this weekend. So,
Oh, gas lines are back. It's so much fun. Sorry, Greg.
Anyway, all right, so we're good.
I just add on to that, just as a...
Oh, God, no, you're gonna.
Micro kids, baby.
No, micro
kids.
I am just going to say that, no, it was announced that about, at least last I heard before I came here, about 2,000 residents in Humboldt County would have their power turned off. It changes hourly with what PG&E is saying, but it's, Cal OES has a Facebook page, PG&E has a web page where you can put your address in, and you should find out, but they're saying Saturday night there should be power shut off to at least a portion of Humboldt County.
I win.
Yeah, and it's fire prevention again, the
I was told by
public
a
safety.
high-ranking PG&E person today that it was going to be shut off this Saturday at 8 a.m. for 48 hours, so whatever that's worth.
But it's not, from what they're saying now, it's not supposed to be the whole county. They're saying about 2,000 services.
I'll volunteer. They can turn this on.
I'm not sure that's how it works, but that would be great if it worked.
Sure it is.
And so I just wanted to say that. And can I suggest a future agenda item?
You certainly may.
I think a future agenda item, because I heard it a couple times in public comment and we've heard it before, is the security on Woodley Island agenda item.
Well, the collaboration on the small peninsula for microgrid would be a natural.
All right, so we're moving on to.
Ask a question on the subject you just brought up, on the power outage.
Yes, you may, go ahead.
At my home in Arcata, I'm a PG&E customer, and I was notified by text. I was also notified by an automated phone call. However, down here at the marina, you're the provider here, and when you had advance notice that the power was going to be shut off Saturday, none of the people here were notified. They're not subscribing to PG&E. Is there not a method to notify so they can make arrangements also?
I don't know the answer to that.
That's a constructive comment.
But hopefully staff can look into that. Good point.
We're not, this is not a discussion.
No.
This is staff
It's
report.
a discussion, but it's important because we did have people that night when we had our power out the first night. We had cars out there with flashlights that took off whenever somebody would walk up. And we did have a security issue that night.
We all had that. We all had that.
Oh, no, I don't think.
Larry.
No, that's
Kenny.
Adam, come in.
You didn't have to sit in your driveway like we did.
Okay.
So the update regarding the completed Woodley Island dredging?
Yeah.
What you're going to talk about?
Yeah, so as noted, we recently dredged at Woodley Island Marina and at Fields Landing Boatyard. I guess I started off with just a few pictures showing kind of the immensity of some of this equipment. There's a tug pushing the dump scow into Fields Landing Boatyard. And there's the barge with the crane that was used for dredging. And during this dredging event, we did use this crane with a closed clamshell bucket type attachment to use the dredging, and it went 3 miles offshore to Hoods. And that's, I mean, I don't know if you can tell the scale of it, but that can pick up a pickup truck. So all in all, we got a lot of material removed. The contract was to remove 20,040 cubic yards. We ended up removing a little over 6,000 at Fields Landing and over 25,000 at Woodley Island Marina. So we're being charged for the 20,000, but we definitely came out really well in that regard.
They didn't charge us an overreach on that?
No, it's a not to exceed contract.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Right on. We did good then.
We did good.
Wow.
Our general sense, is that Fields Landing, we should be good for at least the next several years, if not longer. We'll keep monitoring depths there so we know early when there is a need to dredge. Woodley Island Marina, we still got a backlog of dredging that needs to occur here, well over 100,000 yards. We've talked about our planning for that in previous meetings, and we have a lot on the agenda tonight, so I'm not going to really get into it, but we are actively working right now towards our next dredging event. That's just showing the area that was dredged at Fields Landing, down to 14 feet. The Woodley Island Marina, again, we were limited by the volume we could dredge. So we had to prioritize. So we worked with Dutra to figure out what could be removed the most efficiently to have the biggest bang for the buck for us. And as I noted, they were able to remove more material than they were contracted for, largely because we were able to find these more efficient areas for them to dredge. But what we opted doing in terms of prioritization, which I think reflects well what I've presented to the board in past meetings, is trying to attack what we're referring to now all the time as this hump of material. And so you can see on this figure, the darker areas are the shallower areas, and you can really see how it kind of spreads through the marina. So we started off with the west side there and started, coming at it in. We also, because it is a high priority, we dredged also the end tie, that's preferred location for the Coast Guard cutter to use. So they have good access from the office right here and as fast response times as possible. And this is the kind of products we're getting, just showing the depths that were dredged. We're expecting more product in terms of maps of the post-dredge survey. And it's just useful information that the public can certainly have, and certainly useful for our operations at the marina to know the depths. And also, as we've indicated, we're planning to get the survey information annually so we can better prioritize our dredging and get a better handle on, sediment movement and shoaling and address it more strategically than maybe it has been in the past. That's the end of my presentation. I just want to note, there's a lot of work and different things that go on with dredging due to staff turnovers and stuff. And I guess since we haven't dredged since 2007, none of the staff here at the Harbor District had been involved in an actual dredging event. And everyone just worked hard to make sure everything went smoothly. Corey here at the marina just really took the lead in terms of contacting tenants and working with the dredgers to figure out where boats needed to be moved so they could work efficiently, and then contacting tenants and coordinating with Leroy, thank you Leroy, in terms of moving boats that had to be moved. Robert Provolt, who works primarily down at Fields Landing, coordinating with Dutra about prioritizing there, along with Todd Renke here. Mindy Hiley, our Director of Administrative Services, basically just having a big hand in every aspect of this and making sure everything goes smoothly. Brittany, our office assistant, particularly for coordinating with the public, putting out messaging about what's going on, and just being really transparent and working really well on that part. And of course, the Dutra team was just really fantastic to work with. Really, just constantly asking us, about our needs, about their priorities, because it was a not to exceed volume. they really wanted to hone in on the priorities. And after they would dredge one fairway, they'd immediately survey it. They'd say, hey, Adam, Corey, here's how much we got, here's how much is left, where should we go? So there's this real active prioritization, and they just did a great job on that. And then, of course, I really want to thank the marina tenants. Again, the priorities were changing, so we realized that people in one fairway might have got a message that they might need to move their boat, and then that might have shifted. And so this was kind of a learning experience for us, too, in terms of relaying information. But everyone and all the tenants were great in terms of helping us get boats out of the way and making sure it went really efficiently. And that's the end of my presentation.
Thanks, Adam.
Yeah.
Any discussion from the board? Got a deal?
Sounds good.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this many times, but, good work and working with what we had and the constraints, the many constraints that were put around us, and good work, like you said before, that we're already talking about the next dredging cycle, how that's going to be funded, how it's going to happen, how we're going to get the marina back to the depth that it's supposed to be. So,
Yeah.
I appreciate all the good work.
Well, and that's what's paramount, is for us to get on a regular cycle of dredging, maintain the permits as open, and get the use of our cutterhead dredge so that it can be done in a less polluting way and in a more cost-efficient and energy-efficient way. And so let us press on to improvements with efficiency to get to the optimal solution that's sustainable going forward, which is using the small peninsula and depressions, using the cutterhead dredge for extraction, and being able to pump the materials the shortest possible distance. Any alternative over time will make it cost infeasible for us to maintain the bay. So I'll be asking people to join in a request for logical and rational regulation of dredging so that we can both maintain commerce and, going forward, help improve the function of the ecosystem of Humboldt Bay. And we're currently constrained from doing so. But good job in the short term in terms of maintaining navigation.
Thanks, Dr. Richard. No, thanks, and make sure we put Dutra on our Christmas card list. Okay. Seeing no more comments from the board, I'd like to take the public.
Kim Sawalski, some of the people in the room may not have been tracking what's been going on with the dredge and that part of it. And of course, many people in the room have a dog in the fight as far as seeing that it happens in the future. Last meeting, we discussed possibly paralleling with Eureka, and you may find that Patrick's gone, and I was going to say something really nice and agree with him. Maybe I'll wait till he comes back. I'll say it now. The concept of having the Army Corps do their dredging along the outside of your area so that you can do that is imperative. The dredging you did was a teaspoon in the bucket relative to what has to be happening. My understanding is you're going to be looking for money to accomplish future dredging. My understanding is the public perception that your current dredge, which you have 1.1 million or more in, might sell for $500,000 these days because you, as staff said, can't use it in other ports in California, so the demand is drastically decreased for that. You also have such things that you can look for money to accomplish this as well. My understanding is that for about a year and a half, you've been paying 8.25%, 8.5% on that $1.3 million loan, which comes out to in excess of $50,000 per year. All these small little amounts of money are stuff that you folks need to work on to have so that you're not waiting twice. Earlier I spoke about the need to use a significant portion of your tax money that's paid in for property tax. That's why it's there. It's for this purpose, to keep everybody's boats off the sand. They're still there. We'll let you know on the litigation thing. In speaking with Mr. Stunich, just to be quite frank with you, the fisherman's lawsuit is being appealed. He's quite optimistic that it will prevail upon appeal. It's out of Humboldt County. It's getting into a venue where they're a little bit more, and you might find an attorney, a judge who just doesn't want to get it off his docket, just goes to the side and doesn't really pay attention to what's going on. So I think that's what your future is going to be regarding that. I did want the public to know that if I recall right, and of course, I don't see your financial guy here to be corrected, but the marina, even with dredging, had a negative $25,000, whether the Redwood Marine Terminal 2 had a negative in excess of $600,000. That shouldn't be happening. That $600,000 should be available for dredging here, rather than taking the property tax I referred about to keep that going on a pipe. Now, maybe you're going to get something great, maybe you're going to get something, but we've been hearing that for a very long time. And I think the people are tired of the pipe dreams. We want reality. And that small amount of money that's needed to make this happen, even the leases I mentioned earlier, that's another $200,000, $300,000 that should be in the fund to do this, so other people's costs won't have to be raised. And I'll stand behind them, and I also wanted to let you know regarding the fishermen's litigation, somebody has their back financially on that one, and there will not be financial problems on that appeal.
Any other comments on the dredging project?
David Elwell, fishing vessel corregidor, and it's encouraging to hear that some dredging actually got done. That's how jobs get done at the start of them. But if I'm correct, I think $660,000 has been collected from tenants for dredging over the last 7 years when dredging hasn't taken place. And I don't think it's appropriate to discuss raising dredge fees until we complete the dredging that hasn't been done and it's already been paid for. It doesn't compute. After you've done the job that you've already been paid to do, then we can talk about the next job. And I know I suffered a $3,000 bill for damage to my boat because I was sitting on the bottom, so that didn't work out very well for me. And I also think it's appropriate for, I understand you collect over $1 million a year from the general fund, and the dredging is a capital improvement to the harbor, and I think it's appropriate for that, for the general fund to pay part of that. It shouldn't all be on the backs of the fishermen. And I think you spent around $600,000 to dredge the travel lift and the barge location and down here. And since the tenants have put up $660,000 and haven't seen any dredging, it kind of seems like their money's being spent over there, and that's not their responsibility. It's not our responsibility to dredge that. And it's certainly a responsibility for the whole county to dredge where the fuel comes in the fuel barge, because everybody benefits from that. So I would like to see this thing delayed at least until we get dredged out and see where the hell we are. Thank you very much.
Thanks, David. Any other comments on item 10A?
Lieutenant in New Harbor. Everybody's pretty much said all we need to say about the dredging, but one thing I don't think anybody's looked at, and Leroy may know more than me, but eventually that dredge site offshore is not going to be available. I have no idea where we're at on that and what the parameters are, but as a guy that comes and goes across that bar in the wintertime, I can tell you from experience, because I was here when the dredge site used to be on the south side of the jetties. What happened there is the same thing that's happening on that north side. So I would work pretty hard to try to get that machine you have locally to be able to be used, because I think that at some point we'll lose that north side. I don't know where they'll go from there. The travel times are quite strenuous on them right now, so they're even with the ships they complain about the travel times, the turnaround times, and so forth. But in the winter, I'm not a surfer, but I think you could ask the surfers the same question and they'd give you the same answer. I see swell developing from that side, and the problem with that is that there's nowhere for it to lay down because of the natural occurrence of the sand that comes out of the bay naturally, or else comes from Eel River, it hits and stops, is building a high spot and continues to build Mother Nature, but when those swells come in and they start to build on that dredge site, which is outside of that, they don't have a period of time enough for them to lay down substantially before they come to the beach, which is where we're at, trying to get out. So I've never heard it addressed, but I'm sure that it's in the back of the Corps' mind, because they took a heavy beating on that south site, and they should have. We all had our pet names for that site, but we all watched people drown because of that dredge site. It was not very far offshore, everybody knows that, and they cheated a lot too. A lot of times I watched them go out, they were turning around before they even got to the site. They do a better job on the north side, but at some point, I think that'll become a problem. So I know there's a real problem with everybody on using that other type of dredge. Personally, I don't see some of those problems as valid, but they seem to be a thorn in your side. But I would work pretty strenuously on using that and using landfills. Thank you.
Kevin, they're in the process of developing another place at this time, right now. They're
Dredge site?
Yeah, a disposal site.
And our best option is depressions for 100,000 cubic yards in the Samoa Peninsula.
Yeah.
So we can use it as fill.
That makes so much sense, and they've done it in all their ports. They did it in Fort Bragg. They put it in a pond, dried it out, and shipped it off, and so forth. But I don't really think that they take into account the people that come and go out of ports in general. This port in particular is one of the worst. They don't take into account, people's lives are dependent on some of these decisions that they make. And it's so petty to make some of the decisions based on what we're going to do with our dredge spoils versus what are we going to do with 10 dead fishermen in the season. I've been doing this for 44 years. I can't count on my hands and toes the number of people, some of them I personally watched, die because of the dredge sites offshore. Mostly the southern one. The northern one is a problem. It's hard to deal with when you fish on the north side of Eureka. There is a vast amount of ground that you have to cover when you're at the mercy of a lot of conditions, and those conditions are all starting on that site. It has to do with swell direction also. But, yeah.
They're letting Santa Cruz pump it offshore into the surf zone, and our littoral cell north of the mouth is starved, and so that's logical. We've got studies that cost $100,000 that said it doesn't hurt the perch. Sorry, I'm out of order.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the audience on the staff?
Hello. Vivian, hello. I've said this before, but I'd like to think about it some more. To see this commission consider having the source of all this mud help pay for the dredging of this mud, because the fishermen aren't causing the mud to come into the bay. I've heard commissioners say that some of them consider this a wood basket, that the bay is a wood basket. That reminds me of a forest supervisor down here who considers the national forests to be fiber, whereas they have, as we know, many other functions, both ecological and recreational and so on. I've heard commissioners say that these are our clients. We can't charge them. We get money from them for these shipments of what's now considered quality wood products, wood chips, whereas we don't have the 30-inch saw logs anymore. Those are gone. And those wood chips can't get out the entrance half the year because of the industrial waste from their own industry. I'd like to see some help paying for this by the source of the mud and not be on the receiving end of both the mud and the payment for it. Thank you for considering that.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, I'm going to move on to our resolution on our fee schedule. Larry's like to fill us in on.
Yes, so what you have tonight is a whole series of resolutions and an ordinance. And so what I'm asking, my recommendation to the board is that myself, I haven't heard a lot of issues about the administrative costs of the office, the harbor fees that we charge to the ships, the Fields Landing Boatyard fees, the Redwood Marine Terminal fees, or the equipment usage fees. And so my recommendation is that the board, address those and then kind of take care of those fees and see if there are issues, and then adopt those resolutions and the ordinance one at a time. And then once those are done, then to take the Woodley Island marina fees, because I think that's what most of the discussion is on. So that sort of is my recommendation. But as a, and so, and then what I would prefer to do is to hold off on, if you think that's a good idea, then I would hold off on the discussion of the Woodley Island marina fees and just deal with those other fees first, if that's okay.
As one item of discussion with several different votes.
Yes. To hold off on doing take care of all the rest of the fees first, then do the Woodley Island fees after we take action on those. That's my preference, but I completely defer to the board.
Not ours.
Could take all night otherwise.
So we have 5 different resolutions.
I await a motion.
I move that we approach the subject such as Larry Acker has recommended, with discussion on items 1 through 7 conjoined and item 8 standing separately.
Just a point of order. We have to take each resolution in turn. We can reprioritize the order in which we consider them, but I still recommend we start and go resolution by resolution, and we can hold the resolution regarding the Woodley Island Marina to the end.
Which it is.
Which it already is.
Well, I make a motion, then we adopt resolution 2019-10, Harbor District fee office fee schedule.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion. Commissioner Doss.
We've reviewed that schedule, and I'm okay with that change.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Cedric? Anybody in the audience would like to discuss? We are going to have 8 of these.
I look forward to all 8.
I figured that you do.
For the exact reason I'll speak on this first one here. So the public knows we have access to public records, and it's one of the few things that we can do as far as finding out what's going on. I do that throughout the county. The new established thing, if they move forward with what they had last time, basically puts the highest fees in Humboldt County to receive public records requests that I run across. I just wanted the public to be aware of that. I feel personally it's a affront to transparency. In the past, I've cost them quite a bit of money because I needed information. I try and work with people who put sideboards on my request to minimize their costs. On the other hand, I do feel that it's inappropriate to have this extremely high charging rate for producing those public request documents.
Thank you, Ken. Any other? Thank you. Stephen?
Yeah. Stephen Schwartz with the operating general. One of the things that I also do under the California Public Records Act and under the Myers and Lewis Brown Act is request documents. I've been doing this for 25 years. I've never been charged for records, especially when I make the request of the Myers and Lewis Brown, which you fall under. I just want to remind you that if this goes through, we're going to have an issue.
Chairman, members of the commission, reading the staff report covered page.
Scott, let's see your name, which is
Scott Frazier, Bluebit. Thank you. On background, it mentions that at your last meeting, which I'm sorry that I missed, there was a decision to delay adoption of revising fee schedules until after costs for dredging and other budget shortfalls were fully analyzed. And I'm sorry, I've gone through this package, I've looked at the materials online, I don't see the analysis. So if you could inform us, as members of the public, what the analysis was. And secondly, on this particular resolution, Stephen, what is the amount of revenue it'll likely draw in that you'll currently have?
Any other comments on resolution 2019-10? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. Any other additional comments? All in favor?
But for clarity, can we breeze through with that?
So for clarity, is we're not raising, there's no changes to any Public Records Act request, there's no increases, nothing associated with that at all. It's just if somebody comes in and wants to do a bunch of archival research and they're requesting documents, then we're just increasing the hourly rate. Then the second change is purely just dealing with late fees and clarifying whatever's in your lease agreement is the late fees that are in the agreement are the late fees that we would charge. And if there's late fees that aren't in the lease agreement, then it specifies how we would deal with late fees. But there's nothing in here dealing with any additional fees for any public records requests.
Before we vote, though, I'd like a response to the concern with from the labor representative about the fees, and if there's any concern with that.
Yeah, so under the Public Records Act request, public entities can charge reasonable costs for copying and providing copies of records. A lot of times records are provided electronically, or the requester can come in and inspect the document. But to the extent there's actually physical reproduction of public records, we are permitted under the California Public Records Act to charge a fee. If there's a separate request under a separate statute that allows for document requests, I'd look at that, but that wouldn't fall under this particular fee schedule. This would be California Public Records Act requests.
So that would not affect that particular instance?
Correct.
Thanks for that. So
I think my understanding too is that the biggest change is a labor cost change for research. I think it's the other fees are all, well, most all looking the same.
And that, as I understood, is to actually try and come closer to recouping actual costs, not to actually make money off of it, but to lose less money.
Right.
very good. A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
We need a roll call.
Gosh.
Commissioner Doss?
Aye.
Commissioner Coleman?
Aye.
President Dale?
Aye.
Commissioner Marks?
Aye.
And Commissioner Higgins?
Yes.
So the next one is the SDU, and the motion would have to be to read the title of the ordinance and then consent to read by title only. And so, in particular, what the ordinance is doing is we have, when we did the deepening project, the Harbor District has approximately a little over $200,000 of debt service that they have on the deepening project that was done when they deepened the main channel. We currently do not bring in that revenue. So what we're proposing to do is increase the fees that are associated with when ships come into the bay to help to offset some of those costs so that the general fund is not subsidizing the deepening project. And so that's the only action that particular ordinance does, is to authorize us to increase the fee for the harbor usage fees for commercial ships and barges coming into the bay.
So moved. You have to read the amendment to ordinance 15. So start with the draft amendment number 7. I move. I'll do it. Okay.
I move, are we accepting or we're reading? I move to adopt draft amendment number 7 to ordinance 15, tariff section number 6, Item 14, enacting general tariff number 1, establishing rules, regulations, charges, and fees, including harbor fees on vessels and cargo in connection with the Humboldt Harbor and Bay 38-foot deep draft navigation improvement project within the jurisdiction of the Humboldt Bay Harbor Recreation and Conservation District, and consent to read by title only.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second.
I believe the 48-foot contour that we were shooting for in 2002 when we borrowed $2 million to do so.
I believe that's correct.
So is this a typo? Should it be 38?
No, you're both correct. Is the 48 feet was in the entrance channel. The 30, that was covered with the Army Corps of Engineers. It was a partnership. The deepening project, the fee is if you use the entrance channel and the snow channel, and the snow channel is dredged to 38 feet.
Thank you.
So it's my understanding these fees were established by looking at other harbors and consulting with shipping agents.
I reviewed well, what this fee is specific is to the debt that the harbor district has. No other port has the same debt that we have, and so there's not a direct comparison between the fees, but our fees are way lower than any other port, way lower. This is literally the only fee that the harbor district charges for any ship coming into Humboldt Bay.
Charging more.
That's what our goal here is. So I have a motion second. Any more discussion from the board?
These are just incidental costs to shippers. These are not a big deal, I don't think, in terms of their gross
No, it's
and the
competitive.
transactions involved.
And they are competitive charges. Mr. Sawatsky, you are up.
Last meeting, I requested and suggested that you reach out to the people who are going to be paying those fees to see if they have any comments. So I didn't see any record of that being done. It was just a suggestion. I don't think it's going to make much difference personally. I don't see that there's no tour ships scheduled to come in. Schneider's moving out of the area. So you're charging something, and because of the fact that we're not able to provide a free open port 365 a year, people aren't interested in using our port. One reason why it's so much less here is because we have the shortest port to dredge in California, and we all are aware of how far you have to go to get into all of the other ports. So of course we should have the least cost. We have the least time for all the services we provide, the least cost per ship coming into the ports, and our rates should be extremely lower than other ones. That's something you can offer to try and entice business here. And if you haven't reached out to these people to see if that was made any difference to them, in my opinion, you haven't done your due diligence as far as the benefit for losing clientele as far as raising prices. I suggested that before. And anything you're doing with raising prices sometimes does not add more money into your coffer. Sometimes it has the opposite effect.
Any other comments on draft amendment number 7 to ordinance 15? Seeing none, I bring it back to the board. Answer resolution.
Commissioner Doss?
Aye.
Commissioner Coleman?
Aye.
President Dale?
Aye.
Commissioner Marks?
Aye.
And Commissioner Higgins?
Yes.
I apologize, but the number 3 is actually a duplicate of number 2, so we don't need to do that one. And so the number 4 is the harbor fees. And so part of what it does is it takes the exact same fees that you just adopted in the ordinance and then puts it in the resolution. And then you'll notice at the very, very end, there's also a fee for the anchorage, which I had discussed earlier today that we had the violation on. And so in essence, if somebody wants to anchor for longer than 3 days, they could apply for a special use permit. And then that's what the cost of the anchoring in the bay is. And that's basically what this resolution does.
Move we adopt resolution 291011, harbor fee schedule.
A motion and a second.
I'll second.
Motion and second. Any discussion at the board level? I'll take it to the audience. Ken, you might as well stand up. You're going to be here for a while.
My legs hurt. I like to sit down once in a while. So, just a matter of clarity, there's a permit, you can go for more than 3 days, is my understanding. And how much is that permit? Maybe you can let these people know. And right now, their boats are sitting out here paying a whole bunch of money in the mud. Maybe they want to just go ahead and pay that amount instead and not have to pay for your dredging fees and everything else. And just get all the bays out of here. It seems to be your desire to push them out of here. And if it's way cheaper, I think they're entitled to know what their options are.
I didn't realize that there was a limit. I know how the Forest Service is limited to 3 weeks, that part I didn't know. If it's a matter of riffraff, which sounds like maybe your current problem, that could be something to be looked at, but I don't think I would discourage somebody. I don't know what the fees would be after 3 days. Are they on?
It's $2 per foot per month.
$2 per foot per month to anchor in the bay after 3 days.
6.5 cents per day.
Per foot.
I don't think I would discourage that type of activity. There's a lot of people that come in here and do anchor in the bay. Some of them I think I've seen for more than 72 hours, but most likely they look like they're upstanding citizens, maybe with a launch, and they're not bothering anybody in particular. They don't look like riffraff, and they probably haven't fallen under the problem you may be having. I don't think the way to deal with the problem you may be having at this time is to increase a fee schedule after 72 hours. I mean, there are some beautiful boats that come into this harbor for various reasons. They may anchor out. I mean, go anchor out in the bay for a night and see what those reasons might be. It's pretty nice. But I can't even imagine that. That just doesn't sound very friendly for what we've tried to develop in this port and in this county. It doesn't ring a bell with me. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on the harbor fee schedule? Seeing none?
In the Harbor Safety Committee meeting, one of the big discussions was not necessarily recreational boatings, but the big ships. If you have big ships and they can't get out because of inclement weather or other reasons, and then they may have to park in the bay besides at the dock. And so then what the ordinance does, it identifies specific areas that aren't in the navigation channel where ships and other things can anchor in the bay. But it also applies to other vessels beyond just the larger commercial vessels.
So you're saying this fee is primarily directed at the larger?
I'm just saying, it's not saying primarily, I'm saying that was part of the reason why this was set up, and that this was discussed at the last meeting of the Harbor Safety Committee about, making sure that we have identified spaces where ships could anchor in the bay if they can't get out, or if we encountered situations where we had two ships that needed to use the same dock, and there was weather and one couldn't get out, and so then where were they going to be? So anyway, it's not just purely recreational boats.
And it's not a new fee, it's just an increase in fee.
Ricky, does anybody know where Richardson Bay is? Do you know what they do in Richardson Bay? They let people squat there and it turns into a shake. I've got a big boat here. We anchor out because we can't get into places, and that's just part of life. We accept that. And with that said, there's a reason that we need to charge these people. If not, they're going to fill our bay up, and we're going to turn into Richardson Bay. Right now, in Phil's Landing Boatyard, we have 20 vessels, and that's right now that we need to dispose of. And the $65,000 that we have a grant on, that's not going to make a dent, And I'm all for it, I mean, we're all boaters and we all got to have a place, but we've also got to control our neighborhood. And if we start letting every derelict that can buy a $50 boat throw out the hook and row ashore and dump their sewage and do all this other stuff in here, then our bay is going to turn into a shithole. We have a live bay. Pat Higgins constantly reminds us of that. We have one of the few working bays that is alive and well, and I think that's That's important, and I'm not picking on people that don't have money. I mean, I struggle like everybody else, but also with that said, we just can't let everybody show up, drop hook, and hang out here until their boat sinks, and then what do we do with it? Nobody ever brings up that. What do we do with it? We have 1/3 of our boatyard right now with derelict boats that we can't get rid of because we don't hold title to them. I mean, it's an epidemic problem. The state of California, there's nowhere to bust up boats. I mean, it takes a lot of money to do this, and like I said, with the money that we have right now, the district has right now, I should say we're not even gonna make a dent in those, and I'm sure there's a bunch more here in the marina that needs to go. So, just my 2 cents worth. Thanks, and I'm not picking on anybody, just saying. I am. We'll turn it into Richardson Bay then. See what happens then. You won't be able to navigate here if you do that.
Any other comments on?
Mic's open.
On this resolution? Seeing none, I'll bring back to the board. I have a motion and a second.
Commissioner Doss?
Aye.
Commissioner Coleman?
Aye.
President Dale?
Aye.
Commissioner Marks?
Aye.
And Commissioner Higgins?
Yes.
I move to adopt draft resolution 2019-12 Fields Landing Boatyard Fee Schedule.
Do you have a second?
Second.
First and a second, a motion and a second.
Comment on that one?
Yeah, you're gonna
There will
get
be.
there, we're gonna get there
There
in
will
1
be.
second, all right? We'll see if the board's got any comments. Any comments from the board? Seeing none, you're up.
Thank you, bro.
You beat Kent.
Hey, I just thought.
Come up, identify yourself and.
I'm coming. After the fact that, is there an increase of $200 or $100 dredge fee both ways on that? Boatyard fee?
That is correct.
Is that in addition to everything else that we're paying, and then you get our boat service, we're also gonna pay an additional $200? That seems a little, redundant from all the fees that we're paying for dredging. I mean, that's primarily boat work for a lot of people that go there are people that live here and have boats here and live in this community, and they pay a dredging fee. I pay a dredging fee. And then you want me to pay an additional $200 to pull my boat out to get the bottom scrubbed. I mean, just as a dredge fee, it seems a little absurd that I'm getting double charged for a dredge fee. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you.
Anybody agree with that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Everyone.
Just thought I'd mention that.
Kevin, come on.
Yeah, I feel like I've been here before. Yeah. I have a 74.5-foot boat in Crescent City that I used to bring down here and haul out. It was pretty much all that unit could handle down there because of the way the fuel was in the boat. It was all forward. So I saved some money by doing a lot of the work myself. Sometimes we did some major work down here. The last 2 times I've hauled that boat was in Crescent City. Various reasons. That's where the boat operates out of. That's where the operator is. But I don't think I can find a reason that I would bring that boat back down here because of the environment. I like the new guy there, but it did tax the travel lift, but I've done some things to the boat that can make it easier on the travel lift. We put a bulbous bow on it so we could move the travel lift forward on the boat to disperse the weight because the weight wasn't in the back. But I mean, it comes to a point in time where I'll pay Ted to do my work. You know, I can't write off my work, so there's another problem that is not yours, but when I do $10,000 worth of personal work to the boat down here, I don't really save 10 grand because I did all the work and I get no benefits from the government. But when I'm going to be paying inordinate fees, excessive fees, because of the size of the boat and the location, and bringing it down here costs a little bit of money, I'm just not going to do it. So, I mean, back to the thing on anchoring in the bay and everything, you know, I'm a landlord too. When I have a long-term client that's rented for me, especially over the course of 4 years or more, I'll never raise their rent. I'll die before I raise their rent. And there's reasons for that. Mainly because I'm not a very good businessman, but I'm also a human, and they're paying their rent, and things are going well. I like to, that's a good omen. But every time something happens around here, it's fees, 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 with less for your fees. I mean, I know you guys hear this all the time. I see it in your faces, and I would not want to be in your position. But at some point in time, you people need to say no also. Well, just once, just on one of these fee schedules tonight, one of you say no, and I will be satisfied that I came to this meeting. It may not change the outcome, but if I could just get one of you to say no on one fee schedule, I will feel a lot better. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on the boat lawn, field landing boatyard fee schedule? So I will say that the cost for hauling a boat hasn't changed except for the dredge cost, the dredge fee. Okay, so I added $200 to the dredge fee. One of the goals of this board has been to attempt to make that launch service, that site pay for its own maintenance. All right, and whether this works or not is yet to be seen. But if you have a 74-foot boat and it's $9.40 a foot, so $10 a foot, $740, you just went to $940, Kevin? That's the way you see it for a round trip?
I have a dozen minutes, but
Thereabouts.
I'll take that.
Yeah. So you just got a 20% increase on your haul out here. I believe we're still competitive with Fashion. Just so you know. I know that we're competitive with the other boatyard in this town.
What about you, Leroy?
So, that's all. That's all I'll say. So I have a motion. I have a second.
Commissioner Goss?
Aye.
Commissioner Coleman?
Aye.
Commissioner Dale?
No.
Commissioner Marks? And Commissioner Higgins?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I pay that fee too.
Which one are we on now? I make a motion to adopt draft resolution 291013 Redwood Marine Terminal and Shelter Cove fee schedule.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion from the board? Any comments from the audience?
This resolution is presented to the public here is does not have specificity to Redwood Marine Terminal. I assume that's terminal number 1? It has nothing to do with terminal number 2. Am I making a correct assumption on that, on this resolution?
Resolution 29-13 says Redwood Marine Terminal 1.
Not on your agenda, is what I'm saying, so.
Yes.
Yes, that's correct.
You're correct. On the title of the resolution, it says Redwood Marine Terminal 1. On the agenda, it says Redwood Marine Terminal.
Correct, so I'm going by that. You have the full package, you get paid the big bucks to, you don't get paid at all, I understand it. So you did say that you want everything to be revenue neutral. I believe that's what we just said. You'd like to have everything kind of pay for itself.
We would like to attempt that, yes.
Attempt that. And so we are talking about Redwood Terminal, Marine Terminal number 1. I'm not seeing any fee increases for terminal number 2, and so this is my relevant question on this. That's the one that was 656,000 upside down and not revenue neutral. So why are we raising Terminal 1, but we're not raising all the rents on Terminal number 2?
We're not raising. There's no change.
Adjusting?
There's no change.
No change, then why you have a resolution to keep it the same, is that correct? I thought there was-
We update the fee resolutions every year.
Yard per square foot, you're changing the format, a few things of that nature. I was misinformed then, I apologize. I still will stand with the thing as far as revenue neutral. I'd like you to look at all of your projects based upon that, since that's your philosophy.
Thank you. Any other comments from the audience?
Well, and also just for clarification, now the Shelter Cove Fishing Improvement Association charges fees and we lease the entire enterprise, so therefore deleted in the column effective 12/1 is because we no longer set fees or collect revenues from the cove.
And just for the record, we lost hundreds of thousands of dollars down at Shelter Grove. We lost hundreds of thousands of dollars at Shelter Grove. Yeah.
Oh, you poor guy.
So, have a motion and a second, it's a resolution, Larry?
Commissioner Doss.
Aye.
Commissioner Coleman.
Yes.
Commissioner President Dan.
Aye.
Commissioner Marks.
Aye.
Commissioner Higgins.
All right.
I make a motion to adopt Resolution 2019-14, equipment fee schedule.
You're on fire, Steve, and I'll second that.
A motion second, any discussion on board level? I'm going to take it to the audience at this point. No? Knees are hurt, you're getting tired?
Merry Christmas.
You're getting tired? No discussion from the audience.
You can read the
Commissioner
fireball
Doss.
program.
Aye.
Commissioner Coleman.
Aye.
President Dale.
Aye.
Commissioner Marks.
Aye.
And Commissioner Higgins.
Aye.
Okay, so for the Woodley Island Marina fees, can you load up, there's like the two slides.
Who do we rent the fireboat to, Larry?
What's that?
Who would we rent the fireboat to?
We were going to rent the boat to the city of Eureka to clean out to help them clean out their outfall for the
Oh, thank
wastewater
you.
treatment.
Interesting.
And so, yes, there are, and
Not
also.
for private parties on weekends, right?
Exactly. And so, within the Woodley Island Marina fee, for the most part, what we're trying to do is, primarily is to, there's two main fees that we're looking to modify at Woodley Island Marina. And in the first place, it's the liveaboards. And so, within the handout that we gave before is that currently in ordinance number 9, which is still in effect, it says that the liveaboard fee is supposed to be $1.30 per foot per month. That's what ordinance number 9 says. On the first page of the form, or I guess it's on the same page of the form, what it gives is the historical liveaboard fees from 2009 to 2020. And you can see from 2009 to 2013, the fee was $135.20. And so it wasn't in compliance with the ordinance, number 9. And so we've been operating out of compliance with ordinance number 9 for a while. And so ordinance number 9 does say that we're supposed to charge $1.30 per month. It is my per foot per month. And so it's my understanding that what happened was that in approximately 2013, that they installed the electric meter pedestals, and then the board took action and then no longer charged a fee for the liveaboards because they enacted the electrical surcharge fee. Basically, we passed through the electrical charges. That's my understanding of what happened on that. So what the staff recommendation is to begin to phase in the liveaboard fee. And in year 1, from November 1st, 2019 through October 31st, 2020, the fee would be $41.66 per month is what I'm recommending. And then in the second year, it would go up to $83.32. And then the third year, it would go up to $125. And that's still less than what was charged in 2009, 2010, when it was $135.20. For under the presentations.
This is it.
No, in the staff reports. In the staff reports, the very last two slides in the staff reports. For the slip rentals, historically it shows what slip rentals are, and so there's no change to any of the permanent tenants slip rents, whether it's the monthly or the yearly, nor the float replacement. What we're proposing to do is to increase dredge surcharge fee. And again, to begin to phase that in over a three-year period, so that it would go up from the current 76 cents per foot per month to $1.26. Then it would go up to $1.67. Then the third year it would go up to $2.26.
That's the option B.
And so then, within that, the way I look at this,
Hey, Larry, hold on. I'm not sure I'm following you here.
Yeah.
I'm confused. Yeah, I'm.
Look down at the bottom.
this sheet right here. Yes.
Okay.
This sheet here, the bottom three columns,
The bottom three columns,
way to the far right.
the bottom three columns, way to the far right.
Yes.
So as of 10/31,
Can you put it on the board?
oh, it doesn't look like we can. Is this on a PowerPoint?
It can all go up.
Can you put it up
I
there?
don't know.
Yeah, please.
Do you have that, Larry, on this one? Oh, no.
No. Well, we made up, I think, 20 copies of these.
Yeah, they're out here.
We made 26.
No, this is the first time we've had the chance to look at it.
Yeah, it's the same as what's in the staff recommendation and the staff report, which is to essentially have a 50% increase per year on the dredge surcharge fee. And so, with dredging, again, because it sort of gets back to dredging, here's really is the bottom line with dredging. To me, it gets down to a couple of big questions. In the past, we all just talked about, why aren't we dredging? There's all these excuses. Why can't we dredge? So on and so forth. Right now, we have all the permits to dredge. There's no excuses. The only excuse that we have is we don't have money. That's the only excuse that we have at this point. We don't have the money to dredge. And so then the question becomes is, how often do we want to dredge? And then where is the money going to come from? And so to this point, when I look at where the situation where we're in today, one of the huge arguments that we got in before is how can we dredge is off the table. We're already there. So now what we get to is we know what the cost to dredge is using a clamshell dredge. We went out to bid twice. The last 2 years we went out to bid, the costs have been the same, $25.50 a cubic yard plus mobilization costs. If you're going to dredge between 15 to 20,000 cubic yards in a year, we know it's going to cost $620,000. That's how much it costs. So then the question is, how often do we want to dredge? Do we want to dredge every year, every 2 years, every 3 years? And then the next question gets down to, that I've heard people talk about today, is who should pay that cost? The way this is currently laid out is the assumption is that 100% of the cost is going to be borne by the dredge surcharge fee in order to collect $620,000 in order to dredge every couple of years, right? And so then when you look at these assumptions, then really the question it gets down to that I think that we should be having a discussion on is what is the frequency that we want to dredge, and then how should we parse out that cost? So in other words, the way it's laid out is that basically, if we're asking the dredge surcharge fee to pay 100% of all the cost of dredging, then if we wanted to dredge every year, then we would have to raise $620,000. If you wanted to dredge every 2 years, it would be $310,000. If we think the harbor surcharge should cover 75%, then there's different numbers that we have to raise. If we think it should be 50%, there's different numbers. If we think it's 25, there's different numbers as well. And what the green numbers show, that's essentially what the current harbor surcharge fee is raising right now. And so if we want to keep the current dredge surcharge fee, and we were just saying, and I'm just throwing these up as some examples, that we think all the rest of the cost should be borne by the district, because that's what I hear people say. We can't raise the fees anymore. Then that means that if, depending upon which interval we as a community decide that we want to dredge 15 to 20,000 cubic yards of material, that means the harbor district is going to have to raise the funds in another place. So to me, when I look at this purely from a mathematical equation, you look at the variables, and the variables of this are, number one, we try to reduce the cost, and that's what we've been talking about with using the cutter suction dredge and other things. We still try to do that, but at this point, we can keep wishing all day long that we're going to get permits to do it. We have permits, and we know that we can dredge for the next 8 years, but it's going to cost us essentially $620,000 a year. So we can try to reduce the cost of dredging, and we've discussed ways of doing that in the strategy, and we're continuing to pursue that. But until we do that, the cost is $620,000. So then the second thing we can change within the variable is the years that we dredge. And the third thing is how we split the cost between the dredge surcharge fee or the Harbor District General Fund. And these are really the variables, and there may be other ones, but in essence, the conversation, in my opinion, that I would like to direct at this in order to have a constructive dialogue on how do we dredge Woodley Island Marina, because again, the question is not, can we dredge Woodley Island Marina, because we unequivocally can, and we have all the permits to do it for the next 8 years. And so, what I hope to do is to gauge the question on the dredge surcharge fee on defining the project that we're trying to solve. And that's how I would like to kind of constructively address this problem of dredge surcharge fees.
So when you say the $1.26 per foot, that includes both the dredge surcharge and the float replacement surcharge?
No, that's only the dredge surcharge.
Okay. So the only thing that's going up from 76 to $1.26 in this proposal this year would be the dredge surcharge, so it goes up by 50 cents.
I want to clarify, the other big change is in the orange at the top, is that we currently, if a transient tenant comes in, meaning they do not have a 1-year lease with us, then they charge the exact same rent as a permanent tenant. What we're proposing to have is a different tenant for transient tenants versus the permanent tenants. And the permanent tenants, the slip fees would stay exactly the same, no increase at all in those. The transient tenants, we're proposing to increase the fees on the transient tenants, and those are designed to match the Brookings Harbor transient fees.
They have electricity included. Oh, never mind, Steve, I'm sorry.
No, that's the board still has discussion here.
Okay.
We're never going to get the same deal at $620,000. They're already mobilized here. So the $620 annually with the dirty clamshell and the way that we backed into this, that's not a fixed number. And so it's more likely it's going to go back into that like $1 million range for that same amount of material, unless there's piggyback mobilization with another enterprise. So we need to make the change to where we can use our own equipment, to where we can use our staff. The cost factors are going to be a lot different. They're still going to be significant, but, you know, that 25, 50, that's not a hard number because we got lucky with Dutra. And I don't think we're gonna duplicate that. So then we back into what happened last year, and, you know, you come back with a number that's like 2 million. So we have to get to a new way of doing business where we do it annually. We can send our services to the city of Eureka. We can reuse the sediment for the perimeter of the bay. So I'm not okay with like taxing the meat like this, like high bar that's just gonna go higher. It's time that we demanded from the agencies that we have the ability to maintain commerce. And we can't do that if we can't get use of our cutterhead dredge, and the science does not support the regulation. So I'm not happy about this at all.
I don't think any of us are happy, but so do we wait another 10 years while we like fight that battle?
We've waited 10 years now.
When was the last dredging done?
Well, that's,
I've been here for 8 years and nothing's
Let
been
the
done.
board discuss.
So, what, you know, one of the things I want to make sure we talk about, the 620,000, I completely agree with what Pat's saying. That's a fixed number for this year. We got lucky because we didn't pay mobilization costs. We could probably have bumped it up close to $1 million at a deal. We are also, I hear criticism over and over again, and it's not warranted that the dredge surplus fees are not accounted for, or the dredge fees, you know, need to only be used in one spot. This organization takes public funds from the whole county and subsidizes the Action Marina. I don't have a dog in this fight. I am totally happy with my tax dollars coming and supporting the marine activities. I'm very happy with that. I think that's an important part as a member of the community to keep the bay in good condition, keep it working. That's a big factor for a lot of us that don't work on the bay every day to cover. But there's some hard things that happen that are hidden, and we take a lot of hits for. The 620,000, I think actually this dredge cycle, we got more material out than what was planned, and I think it's closer to about 1975 a cubic yard. We won't see it under 30 the next cycle, whether it's next year or 3 years from now.
When somebody else does it for us.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing is that we don't have an accounting for it, and I don't think it would even be cost effective to account for it. But the district spends dollars damn near every day towards dredging that doesn't take in the $620,000. So the district has acquired equipment and personnel to go out and do pre-studies to keep the costs down for dredging. Those are all costs that don't show up in the cost for dredging in the big number when we bring in the barge and the cranes and the big activity happens. That's the circus. Yeah, all of the permitting costs,
years of it,
research and all of that is not accounted for in dredge costs. And we need, as a community, to understand that we are spending money on dredging damn near every day, but we're not accounting for it like an attorney does. Sorry, Ryan. where you're accounting for it on that meter in all these different directions. It would not be feasible for an organization to run a meter like that. I mean, we kind of do, and we know where our personnel time is spent, but we got to acknowledge that that's not the total number, and that the district is well invested in dredging. The attempt last year, where the dredging expense was so out of line that the district didn't even pull the trigger to go forward, that had a lot of money invested in it. That was a failure. We've done that the year before, where we've gone right up to almost permitting, and we've spent a lot of money as a district, as a community, and it couldn't work. And it's mainly because of the environmental press that is against and my personal feeling is it's ridiculous, the amount of pressure that's put against the district environmentally to raise the costs. So the biggest complaint ought to go against that regulation, and that's something that our personnel are working on daily and negotiating an ease of some of those requirements. So I just want to make sure that it's clear that that's not a fixed number. That number is not going to be the same next year or the year after. And there's a lot of assets, a lot of human time spent, a lot of dollars spent by the district pretty much on a daily basis towards dredging.
Thank you, Commissioner Goss. Ms. Cola, maybe?
Well, I guess then, following on that conversation, I think that's a really good point on the costs. And so that $620,000 figure, how realistic is that for subsequent years for dredging 15 to 20,000 yards? Or is that accounting for the mobilization? Or
The mobilization is the variable. Again, you solve the problem, and what we strove to do was to, and we got the permits to use the Redwood Marine Terminal 2, so you don't need to bring in a belly dump barge, because it's the big mobilization cost. Again, if all you need to do is you got Mercer Fraser's and you got Fegus's barges that are sitting right there on the dock right now. They don't have to bring them in from San Francisco. They don't have to bring them in from anywhere. If we can pump directly over to RMT2, I talked to Dan Johnson today about accepting the dredge material. He told me, and he showed me the area on the map. We're getting ready to meet with him so we can get the permits. He estimated there was approximately 1 million cubic yards material that he needs for fill.
That'll last a while.
And so, again, it is reducing the mobilization cost. The $25.50 is the excavation and putting it into there. The mobilization cost is the thing that's been killing us forever.
Okay, so the 2550 times 20,000 yards, so that's 510. And so the idea of 620 is hoping that we can get the disposal costs down considerably by disposing it on shore, or on land, I should say.
On
Everyone
land.
comes running in through the doors yelling at us. Okay, that's all I wanted to clarify
Commissioner
at this point. Fine. Hear from public.
So, I want to say something here. So, there's a reason why we drive around, and it's not just in California. It's pretty much ubiquitous across the U.S. You drive around this country, our roads are potholed. We're struggling with infrastructure like bridges. We don't have the money. We don't the cost to maintain infrastructure like the marina, like our roads, like our bridges, is dramatically increasing. And I don't have a solution for it. It is just the reality that we face. And we as a district have been dealing with this for a long time. Some of the ideas that we've had the district doesn't make enough money to maintain this marina, okay? And the city of Eureka doesn't make enough money to maintain their marina. They sold a piece of property to dredge their marina, and they didn't do it. It's not dredged very well. Sorry, Leroy, I didn't mean to.
How do you know?
I just want to tell you that this is all breaking down. Our infrastructure is falling apart. We don't have the financial ability to fix it at this point in time. And the old mechanisms that were there are not adequate to do it. And so we're throwing a lot of things at the wall. We threw a lot of different things on the island, restaurants and what else we put? RV parks. Oh yeah, RV parks is one of my very favorites.
That was a favorite.
But the idea is any kind of revenue that we can generate from this area that would help fund maintenance on the infrastructure it's gonna be a plus. I know that Kent's gonna get up here and complain that we're spending a bunch of money on the pulp mill over there. That's one of the things I think I mean, you can criticize us as much as you'd like. The pulp mill is a good investment, and it's a good investment not just for the Harbor District, but for our community. And I will take any heat on it. I'm supportive of what we did over there, and I'm supportive of what we're doing over there. It will pay for itself, and it will pay for this marina. But something's got to click, and it hasn't clicked yet. I'll get off my soapbox, and I will turn it over to Steve.
One more thing that I think is an important point going forward is that the district has on their board projects several good revenue sources. And some people might say, well, that's just pie in the sky. You always have to have those on the board as planning. So when it comes up that the district is going to be considering next year, this time, the district hopefully is going to be looking at an offshore wind project that potentially is going to look at Humboldt Bay as a place to assemble and ship out. That's a project that pretty much would fund the district, and we won't have these kind of discussions as much because it would be great. Now that the pie in the sky smile comes out, that's fine, but we got to have 20 different projects that might look like pie in the sky to get one hit. And as a district, we you need to pay attention to that and need to help support those projects. Another one is the offshore cables coming across and landing on the peninsula. Those are great revenue sources that help get these kind of things off the table. We don't have to look at so much on the locals paying the fees as much as bringing in some of these large enterprises that are willing to pay top dollar and do business in Humboldt. So as a community, we need to be behind those and not be saying no to everything that goes towards Humboldt Bay.
And I'll add one more thing while it's up here, and then I'm going to take it to the audience. I understand these costs are tough. I am sensitive to that. I also understand the fact that David sat here earlier and talked about his boat touching the bottom and costing him money because it did sit on the bottom. That's something that we really are striving to take care of it. We are working really hard. This staff, this board is working very hard to address this situation. There's no easy answers. The bottom line is costs are going to increase. They increase everywhere. I mean, every time I go have my boat worked on, I just completely am flabbergasted when I get the bill.
Not for me. I don't work on this boat.
But I will say that we are looking at other marinas and the cost of other marinas, and they're very we're competitive, and I will I'll be the first to say if I'm sorry, but I think these costs are going to go up, and I don't see any other alternative for us as a district. Seeing that, I'll leave it to Stephen. Thank you.
On the dredging, I think it's really deceptive the way you're discussing this. H and I docks were not dredged. However, the fee increase is going to include H and I dock.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So if I owned a trash company and I picked up everybody's trash on the block except yours, and then when the rate increase went up because the landfill cost went up, and now you have to pay more money, I'm still not going to pick it up. But you're going to have to pay it. There's a decision was made not to do H and I.
Prioritization decision. Yes.
Yes, but yet we are required to pay a higher rate, and it wasn't done. And it's not going to be done in the future when it's done again. but yet we're paying the higher rate as our neighbors who have had it done. It's not fair. And to discuss it this way is very deceptive. It makes it seem like it was all finished, like it was all done. It is not.
Fair enough.
So does a fair increase, would that not include the area not done?
No.
So you're going to continue to charge I and H stock and increase the amount though it has not been done?
That's correct.
You know, an example of that, instead of the garbage company, is city streets. You know, our taxes tend to go up every year, and not every street gets paved. In fact, that's an exact problem that the city and county is
Ever get paid.
However, those of us that don't get our street paved still pay that tax, but we know that we're in a rotation to get that dredging done. I mean, if we could have gotten by in permitting and capability with a time window, and we had the money in the bank, there was nobody here on this board, I don't believe, that would have said, no, let's not dredge the whole thing and get it done.
I don't think anybody...
It just wasn't possible.
I don't think anybody here expects to be here for more than 5 or 10 years, not expect a rate increase. But for that rate increase, I expect that everybody thinks they're going to be serviced equally.
I think also that, and that's always is our goal. I think one of the things that is in the plan with staff that I've heard is that there's probably going to be some rearranging of where the vessels are parked. And we're going to try to work with Mother Nature a little bit on knowing where some of those depths are and reposition some of those vessels in appropriate slips. So hopefully we don't have, in between dredging cycles, we don't have as much grounding of problems. But it's very much the fact that we have to buy in as a system that we're going to pay a fee, but we may not see our street get the pavement this year, but we know it's going to be in a cycle.
So then, will you say that the next time the docks are dredged, you will start at I, H, and then work back?
I'm not going to say where we'd start. I would say that just like how we had to prioritize this time, we had to prioritize at the worst location.
3 minutes or
and then go out from there.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Ken Sawatsky, why am I successful in the financial world? I never went for pie in the sky. I plodded along and did it slowly. Just to correct the miscommunication here, the dredging may not be reflected as far as all these other costs, because if your overhead, unless your accounting is totally crap, that's then being passed on in the budget. So the marina itself, when it had a $25,000 negative budget, it would have had overhead costs added to the marina, I would assume. So you really can't use that analogy. Pie in the sky. Well, let's see, the people out here with the fish, they have not exercised their option. They're probably going to give you a $30,000 a year just on the long thing, but none of those things have gone through. The wind, I was talking to, won't mention his name, but a planning director in Humboldt County, and he's done the research. There's not a single one of those wind projects that have moved forward in the United States, and some of them started 16 years ago. And this one's not even close to being on the board. What I'm going to ask is a commitment, 100% commitment from you guys. If your pie in the sky comes in, are you willing to go ahead and roll back their rates to what they are now and reimburse them for the difference?
Does the IRS ever roll back rates because costs go down?
First thing I'm going to ask of you is if that's what's going to happen, then I expect that you make a solid commitment to these people. Of course, none of you will be here when the pie in the sky comes in because it's not coming in. So, as you can tell, I'm a little bit agitated about this. I'm agitated that you are not revenue neutral on your big project out there, which is your whole concern, and I keep giving the numbers. Nobody has contradicted it. It was like 25,000 negative. But if you hadn't bought that thing, for the last 4 years, if the same figures are out there at 659 or whatever it was, that would have been $2.5 million in the last 4 years that you would have had additional money in your funds. And that could have dredged this whole thing 9 times over. Well, all I'm going by is the math from your financial reports and what I saw out here in your budget for next year. That's all I can go by. So, you know, it's just a little irritating to the people here to have your pie in the sky project costing the money that could be. I mean, there's only so much honey in the honey pot, right? And so you get a general fund and then you split that up. So apparently you're spending $659,000 to keep that project going, so someday you may have a little bit of pie. You don't even have a tin, you don't have a crust. I don't think you have an oven to bake the damn pie. And that's the biggest thing you can do to these people. Say, we were willing to commit that we will roll back the river. Now the other thing, lastly, I wanted to bring up something earlier in your communication. I think it was a sewer line that was broken out there, and you were going to work out a reimbursement for your tenants because they've been without services or something negative out there. That's what I thought I heard in the report. If that's true, then why aren't you doing the same thing for your people out here whose boats are sitting in the mud? They have not received the services. They've had more than an inconvenience. They've had financial loss. So even if you didn't raise their rates at all, I think you still owe the money. And of course, that's what litigation's for, I guess. And if it comes down to that, continue on with it. These people can get together, hire Allison Jackson or other top-notch attorneys around here, and they can go back after that. I think it's right and fair. I mean, you know, treat them the same if you do the golden people out there. And they should be reimbursed for that and not have their rates raised at all. And I think that just sell the damn thing off out there and go back to doing business rather than being the real estate business.
Thanks, Nick. Anybody else want to comment on?
Mark Condon.
Thank you, Mark.
I have 2 concerns, and one of them was along his comments about the pie in the sky business and that the rollback. I mean, if they come to fruition in the near future, are you willing to come back with the rates? You know, I realize everything increases over time, but it seems like, you know, even what you were saying, Mr. Doss, was it sounded like, yeah, I mean, gosh, if we get all this money from these great projects, they'll pay for everything. Well, then we can stop paying and you can back off some of the stuff that you're proposing to increase on. I'm the new guy here, 2 years, and that's it. So, you know, I fully accept that fees and prices have to increase over time. That's a normal thing in every aspect of our life. So, you know, I'm not where some of these other people are, where they've been here multiple years beyond mine, and they're constantly paying all that money and not receiving what they feel they should have. The other thing is about the dredging. You know, I don't understand. Yeah, it seems to me y'all really talking about great success with this dredging project, but my understanding was originally the fairways are going to be dredged, the end ties are going to be dredged. There's going to be a lot of this dredging going on, and all of a sudden the equipment, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but the operator couldn't get their equipment up into the fairways to dredge is one of the problems why the fairways didn't get dredged. That's what I was hearing. You know, and then there was some kind of contract issue because of that. You had to work on the contract with them. I don't know. Like I said, these are things I was hearing on the side. Clarification would be great from the board or the administrators here. And I mean, if you look at that little diagram of where you did dredge, I mean, that's a small percentage of what was going to happen. And if you continue to do your projects like that, but you're charging us more for these projects, I mean, what's happening? That doesn't make sense to me as a tenant or as a citizen of this county or the state. I mean, you know, you're promising, this is another pie in the sky is what it's kind of sounding like. We're going to do the fairways, we're going to do all the end ties, but at the end, it's kind of like, well, yeah, we only did a few of the end ties, we did a little bit for the fairways, and that's all we could do. I understand some of them may have been with permitting process. But like I said, as a newcomer to this, what you've done is just bolster all the arguments I've been hearing from people who've been here about 30 years. Saying, well, yeah, they always promise us stuff, you know, different administrations. and we give them all this money, and nothing ever comes of it, you know, from what they promised. Go back and look at that little map again, all the little blocks that you did finally dredge, for what? You know, what has that really done? And if we wait 2 years, and you come back and dredge H and I, and you can dredge a couple other places because they're high spots, you know, are you doing any good? Are you making headway on the dredge issue? That's what I want to know as a citizen, how to pay taxes and what have you. That, you know, I don't want to see these little projects go and just burn money up and not have a long-term positive effect around here. As a diver, I work under these boats. As a diver, I mean, there's so many times when I'm standing under a boat, work on the keel, and I'm hitting mud in a lot of places there. But if the dredge can't get in there to move that material out, and you're counting on these little pockets of dredging to help that mud, you know, slough off down there, it just doesn't seem like this is ever going to be a positive outcome on dredging. And so all this money that you're charging us, it's just sitting there burning itself up, and nothing's going to come of it. And, you know, we're constantly going to be having these arguments. The fishermen are constantly going to be juggling their boats around, sometimes not even getting out to do their business. That's all I've got.
Any other comments?
Hello, Jay Abbott here. Susan Penn sends her regard. I'm sure you'd love for her to be here and make a commentary. So I'm going to, okay, Susan Penn sends her regards. She would ordinarily be here. I have a rental agreement here between the district and myself. And this agreement between the undersigned, and it is signed and dated, of course, from just over 6 years ago. It has A and B. A is that the district operates and maintains a marina, a large facility at Woodley Island. That's it. Maintains a marina. And B is you, the lessee, have read this agreement. So after 2 pages of very fine print, of course, all the details, and all the things we sign away, and all the things we have to pay for anyway, and all the legalities that we basically handed over to the district, which has now a contractual non-liability agreement insurance policy, by us handing over, you know, this idea that there's no liability on the district for anything. In fact, in this agreement, sorry, Mark, but we're supposed to enhance Woodley Island marina security and surveillance by running around and finding all these terrible things going on, and that's part of our job. And so we do this wonderful service for you per our contract. Imagine that. Isn't that amazing? Well, here's the thing here. This Woodley Island Marina, these 2 things in red, and you can see them on the schedule. Take a look at those, please. This is something you have to not agree on. You have to say no on it. And the reason is because boat insurance is required by the harbor. No, it's not. It hasn't been. And the reason it hasn't been, it's never been, is because we have done a contractual non-liability agreement, insurance contracts here by us, saying you don't have to pay anything to follow us onto death. The tree hits the car, $6,000 worth of damage to a tenant's car. No liability. You don't pick up that at all, ever. Okay, unto death. You have damage for the boats, you have damage to the docks, anything that happens, it's up to us. It's very rare that everybody signs off all of this in this, yeah, that's what it's called in the business, a contractual non-liability agreement. And now you want us, who don't, lots of people don't have insurance for their boats, some do, but that's for their personal liability. You already have a liability contract here. You want to charge $100 per month, $1,200 a year to me, because I have a handmade boat, it's a steel hull boat, and I had insurance in Canada where it was built, but people don't want to insure it here, all right, for various reasons. You don't have to get into that. Okay, boat insurance is not required here, all right? I have already signed an agreement with you as per contract, all right? So what are you gonna do with the $1,200 a year? If you charge every boat that comes in here $100 a month, you get money. You need money, damn it. You need money. It's kind of a good way to get money. Okay, you're gonna put it in a separate account for insurance? You're going to insure what? Or are you gonna put that in the dredging? In the general fund? You need money, let's get it there. Please don't do this, this is wrong. Okay, liveaboard permit, $200 for an application. I've already applied. You don't need, give you $200. Is that what you're asking? Right here. You want it? You want $200? I don't have it. I don't have it. Come to my boat, knock on my boat. You know, I'm a bit stressed. These raises, these increases, 226 or 75 cents, or that's 200, over 200% increase. I can't do it. I'll be homeless. And you're going to make this an addiction for me. What? Because I don't have a lot of money? Because I lived here and loved this place? Because I'm a water person? I've lived on the water. So many marinas I've been to. I've never paid a mud charge. I've never paid property tax. Where is it applied here? To people like me who want this place. We love this place. And I'm a trained scientist. I can do you a proposal to do the work that the Corps of Engineers would do, and we do it for free as a service, and let you know exactly what happened to this accordion thing that you did, with little boxes out here. We can go out there and do the soundings for you. We can collate the data. We can give it to you as a tool so you can make informed decisions. You've got this dew trail, oh, they told us a before and after, oh, that's great. You know what's happening? You've got 4 tidal movements every single 24 hours in this bay. And in the winter, over the winter, when we could be doing this, collating this, getting the data, all of this, a group of liveaboards who will do this for you, save you a gold mine of money, because you could then be informed, actually, not by dredging companies that are costing you a bloody fortune, but by people who can live here and do this thing without raising all these things, and resource the people here who live here. I can give you this proposal. It's a wonderful thing. I call it the gold mine for you. And it's serious. I'm serious. We can do this, and we can figure it out, because right now, from the stopping and dredging, you have no idea what's happening in this marine. You don't know what's filling in and sluicing, and all the silt that comes turns this harbor into chocolate milk in the wintertime. The same storms scrub out hundreds of thousands of cubic yards, tons of sand. Where's it go? Everybody thinks it goes to the jetty, but I think all of it does. So this per linear foot, oh yeah, you per linear foot, we have to go for depth too in a marina. Marinas do that, except if you're gonna, you know, run out a 50-foot linear foot slip on mud flat, only in France, of course. You have to understand this basin is not a corrugation. A basin is shaped the way nature makes it. That's what a boat harbor is about. And this marina was built for boats. Not as a yacht club, not as a restaurant row. It was built for boats. And yes, it's going to be tough, but we can work together. Those 2 items should come out these 2 in red. We wrote them in red because they're additions, they're not increases in rates. It's brand new stuff. You will have all allowance. In our agreement, you said you can do anything. Raise them, you will. You will anyway, because you need money, damn it. And you're going to get it from us. 12 liveaboards. 12. You got the letters, didn't you? 12 liveaboards. You'd think we'd be upset. Right before winter. Do it. Give me my 30 days notice. Give it to me.
Thank you, Jay. Gavin?
Thanks for your vote earlier. I got to tell you that I was one of the last Mohicans to come to this harbor, and I don't know why. I just had an attachment to the city of Eureka. When they decided to rebuild their marina, they needed all the boats out, and the city was gracious enough to let me go tie up at England Marine, even though I got robbed twice there. At the city dock where the old Navy boat used to be, And so eventually I came over here and things were good. And things aren't that bad now. But things were good. I enjoyed Susie's company as a harbor master. I don't even know who the harbor master is now. I may enjoy their company, I don't know. But, so I don't have as many dogs to fight as years, but I've probably been here well over 20. And I've always had a presence on a 70-foot slip. And I do want to thank you because I run a business off that slip. Even though I pay some extra fees, I do have you as an additional insured, which cost me money, but it has actually gone down over the years, believe it or not. It started out at over $1,000 a year for my liability insurance, and I'm in the low 600s now. Surprising, and the reason I'm telling you that is because some things do go down, they don't always go up. I know what's going to happen here. We're going to pay some more money. I don't agree with all the reasons, but I don't really have that many answers either. We have a resource sitting in this room that I believe probably does have some of those answers. I realize that dredging probably has to go out to bid, but that resource that's sitting in here that probably will bid probably would offer a lot free in advice that you're not obliged to take, but I think you could take. I think things are going to go up here drastically. Our rent fees and our surcharges. And I just, I don't want to get on you too hard because you've done me a lot of favors over the years by just letting me be here, to be honest. Not that I couldn't have got those same favors at the city, but things got bad down there too with mud situations. We have a mud situation. It comes from both ends. It doesn't all come from the creeks and the streams that come into the bay. It comes into the rivers that dump into the ocean. That's where most of the sediment comes from that they dredge in the harbor every year, the harbor entrance. It's not coming from Elk River and Freshwater and Jacoby Creek. It's coming from Eel River. I don't think a lot of people are comfortable with the fee structure because they don't see what's happening with the fees. You had an excellent sales pitch before it went to public comment. I bought into everything, but you're new here, and you got to understand that some of the stuff that happened here before you came here didn't seem all that clear, Larry. Honestly, I never came in here like Ken and did the math and asked for papers and everything, but nothing was ever really that clear to me. I knew that I was paying surcharges for the docks to be rebuilt, and I knew that I was paying surcharges for the dredging. Well, to be honest, I saw very little of that. I saw no dredging, and I saw very little docks being repaired. When you're a property owner, you do have a problem when you get too much going on, because there's that horrible thing called maintenance. The government especially is so good at getting grants and getting the ability to acquire more. They have zero accountability on the maintenance though. And in private, that doesn't work. You end up getting your ass sued when you fall behind on maintenance so far, especially if it causes injury. There was people in here claiming injury to their boats. If that was somebody's car that got injured in their driveway because of your maintenance program, you would pay for it. So you got a tough one to hoe here. I know I'm going to pay more. I looked at the pictures of what's been done. Strategically, it seems right because it was the higher elevations that you took down. They're just going to siphon off from the other ones, which could be good. We really don't know how hydrodynamics work in a estuary like this because the flows are different than out in the main channel. But it's a tough one. I don't disrespect at all, so thank you.
Thanks, Ken.
My name is Kim McCullough, and I am reading for Susan Penn. This is her letter that she wanted me to read to you. It is in the packet. Dear Larry, staff, and commissioners, I am writing in regards to the proposed rate increases for moorage at Woodley Island Marina. I acknowledge that dredging is costly, regulations are cumbersome, and we are way behind schedule. However, I think that if dredging options had been seriously, wholeheartedly, and open-mindedly pursued over the past 5 to 10 years, as Larry is currently doing, our situation would be very different. Putting the financial burden for the district's past lack of proper practices on boat owners is absurd. Reasonable rate increases are to be expected, but the ones proposed here are onerous. Harbor District staff is using Crescent City and Brookings harbor rates as comparisons. I will let others argue the validity of comparing our marina to others, but I will address the impact of your proposed rate increases. I am attaching 2 spreadsheets which clearly illustrate the concepts here. The first page shows the proposed increases and percentage changes they represent. Costs for Brookings and Crescent City are listed for reference. The second page compares the proposed rates with Brookings and Crescent City for both liveaboards and non-liveaboard tenants. First, it is important to include all the income the Harbor District regularly receives from tenants in your calculations. Woodley Island tenants pay their own electric costs. The other 2 marinas include utilities in their dock fees. The 2017-18 proposed budget included a projected $100,000 in tenant utility reimbursement. I have not found a more current figure, though I have asked for it. With 12,500 dock feet, this comes to an average of $8 per year, $8 per foot per year. Some boaters do not use shore power at all, and others use a lot. I think charging tenants for their electric use is appropriate, but you do need to include that income in your calculation. Adding that figure in, Woodley Island Marina already receives more per foot than either of the other 2 marinas. Option A, a 12% increase in dock rent, would make Woodley Island rent 67% greater than Brookings and 23% higher than Crescent City. With option B, a 27% increase, those figures go up to 87 and 38 respectively. The next proposal is to add a liveaboard fee to rents of those people who spend more than 3 nights a week on their boats. It was pointed out that other marinas charge a separate fee. It is true that other marinas charge a liveaboard fee, and Woodley Island used to, but utility costs are included in their rent. Do liveaboards use more electricity? Sometimes. My average bill over the course of the year is about $50 per month. Fishermen who use block heaters pay at least that much. It is fair to charge us for the utilities we use. It is fair to charge a liveaboard fee, though it should not be the same amount for a single person as for a couple. It is not appropriate to charge both. Though what we pay varies depending on our electric usage, liveaboard costs here are currently comparable to Brookings with their added liveaboard fee. For a single person, Woodley Island is less expensive than Crescent City. For 2 people, the cost is about equal. With an additional $150 a month liveaboard fee, those comparisons change. And with the proposed increase in dredge surcharge added to it, the rates as we individuals pay are changed even more radically. With option A, for a single person, the cost per year would increase 72%. For a couple, that would increase 51%. With option B, a single person increase would be 84%, and the couple cost would be increased 60%. There are only 12 liveaboard boats at Woodley Island. The Harbor District is not accepting anymore. Do you really think we are having that much of an impact on the district's finances? So, how do we pay for dredging? The district would make much more money by filling all the empty berths than by imposing outlandish fee increases on your current tenants. Until they move the boats down here to make room for the dredging on H-Dock, we had 6 empty berths. And I'm told there's a waiting list. Fix the non-functioning electric meters and collect for usage. There are 2 on my dock that I know of. That's just my own personal side note. And let's see, some of the meters do not work, but the outlets still provide power. This is costing you. Charging higher rates for short-term renters is a standard marina practice and will bring in a bit more money. How do other marinas pay for dredging? Richard Marks has stated more than once that dredging is a fairly universal concern, which I think is true. There has been no discussion of how other entities deal with this issue. The Harbor District receives about $1 million in county property tax funds each year. In the current budget, $0 of this is designated for the marina. The Harbor District was formed when Woodley Island Marina was created as a port for fishermen. Part of its mandate is to maintain Woodley Island for the fishing fleet. This is necessarily includes dredging. As a property taxpayer, I would support the use of property tax money to dredge the marina. Fishing is not the industry it once was, but it is still a major player in our economy. As the district pursues options for beneficial use of dredged spoils, we can probably find buyers for the material. Danco's project is a good starting place. They need fill, we can provide it. They will be paying for either fill from either us or someone else. We can work to lower our costs by revising policy. Pat Higgins has stated this, and I agree with him. This won't happen overnight and should have been started a long time ago, but things do change, and we can be a part of making policy changes that will continue to protect the environment, be science-based, and be appropriate for our particular location. Are there any grants available for innovative dredging? Susan goes on to say at the end here, I applaud the district's forward movement, but you need to explore other ways of paying for dredging. Respectfully yours, Susan Kent.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Vivian, please.
Vivian Hallowell, sorry I had to step out. Don't raise our slip rents. We've been paying $1 a day for years to get our slips dredged. Our slips still aren't dredged. And so we're not getting the service that we paid for. Please just manage the harbor better and proceed to improve your dredging plan. But it shouldn't be on fishermen. It was the original intent of the language of Woodley Island to support the fishing fleet, and we still are a fishing fleet. The crab fishermen in the winter need to be able to tie in their slips. Thank you.
Any other comments? Seeing none, please step up.
Yeah, well, I have a question.
Step up to the mic and introduce yourself.
My name's Deanie Davis.
I don't know if we can answer your question.
Because we were given this kind of, set to look at this at the last minute, but there was talk, this is of option A, option B. There's option A, option B off the table, and just this is on the table, and that was my question. Because if it's option A, option B, what are the two options? This is just what I see, one option.
It has option A, and if you look at the far, I'll answer that. if you look at the far right-hand bottom corner, there's 3 different rate proposals, right?
Well, it looks like they go up.
They're staggered.
They go up per year. One says,
Yeah.
November, this year to next year this time, $1.26, and then the next year it goes to $1.76, and the next year it goes to $2.26. Or-
126.
No, 2.26.
Wrong date.
I can,
Okay.
Please, Larry, can you?
I can answer that, is that when we were at the board meeting last time, I presented 2 options, A and B. I posted those at the marina, et cetera. And then, I listened to a lot of people and kind of looked at and came up with a slightly different variation from A and B. For all intents and purposes, and I can't recall exact which was which, but there really is raising it approximately $1 is approximately the same thing as, I think, option A, and raising it $1.50 is approximately the same thing as option B.
So option A is to raise it to 176, it would take 2 years to do that. And then option B is right away to raise it to 226.
No, option A is to raise it to 152, from 170, from 76 cents per foot today to 152.
But that's not what this paper says.
No, and so this is the hybrid. So option A and B are off the table. Well, we're discussing that, and depending on the will of the board. The current proposal that I think has been referenced in the motion is to raise the dredge surcharge 50 cents, not $1 or 80 cents, 85 cents. To raise it 50 cents from 76 cents per foot to $1.26 per foot.
And that's it?
That's the current proposal as I understand it. Is that correct to you all? Is that the current proposal?
On page 53 of 65, if you see Exhibit A, it lists 3 different rates.
My recommendation that's included in the staff report and in the packet, the way the resolution is drafted, is that the ultimate rate would be $2.26, but it would be phased in over a 3-year period to get to that $2.26. 50 cents in year 1, a $1 increase in phase 2, and then the remaining $1.50 in year 3. And the board could choose to do any alternative variations between them.
50 cents a year for 3 years to get to $1.50 total is the way I want it. Yeah, so it's already 76 cents, so 50 cents this year, 50 cents next year, 50 cents the following year.
The date on the bottom grade says 11/1/19, which may be some problem for some people.
I believe that is a typo. I
do too, I'm hoping.
Yeah, I am too.
Maybe we can clarify that one.
Yeah, so that is a typo, correct, Larry?
That is correct.
Not just a sneaky way that Ryan put that in there to sneak us through.
That is correct, and what Ryan had pointed out to me before is that the recommendation really is to give at least 31's advance notice, and so the fees would go into effect in December as opposed to November 1st.
Merry Christmas.
So that we could, and again, the board can change the implementation date any date they choose to, but that is the recommendation. And there were errors in some of the dates, but in essence, the intention is to make it 3 years phase-in period.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Hi, my name is Charlie Rockwood. I live on H. Dot. And I was wondering, when was the marina dredged before?
1998, I believe, was last.
2007.
I heard
2008, sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Since when I got here, my first year's rent was $1,900. So since then, I have paid over $2,000 in dredging fees in 6 years. So that's what's happening so far. And I've seen no dredging on A-Stop. And another issue is that I lived on my first boat for 18 years. And on my second boat, I'm working on 6. And the anchoring out on the bay here, what's the charge to anchor out on the bay, the daily charge?
Hold on.
Take your time.
6.5 cents a foot per day.
14-day maximum, 14-day extension.
Free.
The first 3 days are free, right?
First 3 days are free. The problem with it is there's a 14-day maximum.
Right. So as I
Well, 28
understand-
days, because you can get a second.
As I understand it, the bays are forever free, federally speaking, and that the charges you are trying to impose on people that want to anchor out, whether it's for recreation or otherwise, are a little bit excessive. I think it was something like $60 a month.
Depends on how long your boat is.
Okay, my boat's 36 feet long, so what would that be?
$2 per foot per bay is $120.
$120 a month?
Yeah.
I thought it was going up. I thought it
Get
was
3 days
going-
free,
Right, 3 days free.
10% discount.
But then we have to buy a permit to do it again. And we can only get 2 permits a year, and then we can't anchor in your bay anymore except for 3 days at a time. And anchoring is a beautiful lifestyle. And you're taking that away from a lot of people. And transient boats are gonna come in here, and how are you gonna get their money from them? You have to go out there and knock on their boats and say, give me some money.
Been there, done that, so yeah, we do that.
Right, okay. Well, that answers my question, and my situation, thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. Any other comments from the audience?
What? Okay,
Go for it, ma'am.
Sorry. There's a lot of one other thing. I'm sitting here looking at your, Dean Davis again, your thing up here, and I don't see where this has been discussed.
We
at
just,
all.
we discussed that ad nauseum about an hour ago. Dredging costs.
Well, but so has it been decided that 100% of the dredging?
It has not been. And the discussion, the way the discussion went, and I probably shouldn't go here because it's not a back and forth. But I'm gonna do that because I think this is an important decision that we are making tonight, and it's important for all of you guys to understand. So we are open to discussing it. But the bottom line that I think that discussion brought to light is $620,000 is what it cost us this year. It was a gift because we didn't have to pay the mobilization fees for the equipment, or we split the mobilization fees, a fraction of what they should have been. We can't afford to spend $620,000 with the fees that we're imposing is not going to equate to $620,000 a year, okay? So there's no way that we can make $620,000 off the marina dredge fees to pay for dredging $620,000 a year. So it's going to have to be a multi-year fee accruement, and I think that is the correct term.
Are additional funding sources going to?
Yes, well, all district finances are additional funding sources, yes. But the bottom line is we are collecting fees. We are not going to dredge the $30,000, $60,000, $100,000 a year that we get in dredge fees each year. We're going to build that fund up, and then we're going to do a larger dredge cycle on a multi-year basis.
Okay.
So the goal is to build up a dredge fund, and that's what we've done. We spent it this year. We got as much as we could get done for our $600,000. We have plans to do it more efficiently, but those plans are still plans.
Yeah, no, I was just looking at this and then waiting for the discussion about this. It didn't really.
Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you. So I'm gonna, does anybody else got anything to say? So you've already spoken, and for longer than the 3 minutes, so I would hope that this is 3, okay, Jay?
Very good. I'd like to send you gentlemen, all of you, this proposal that I have to help, that might really enrich your knowledge. If we could do this as a project over the winter, when all the weather happens and all the
sluicing and everything in the marinas, filling in and leveling and the drift shoaling and all this stuff that we know is happening at this.
Jay, I would suggest that you communicate with our executive director and with Adam Wagshaw, our
And I would like to present that to you personally as well, since you got my other letter, and I.
You're just asking if you
Absolutely.
can pass something out, come on up.
Or-
No, I don't have it. Right
email
now.
it, yeah, email it to us, and we'll look it over. Thank you.
Beautiful, thank you.
Okay, I'll try to do real
Quick one, quick.
I just wanted to go into there and talk about the liveaboard fee real quick, and the fact that we're not getting the services that we used to get when we had a liveaboard fee. We have to, take care of our own security. The cameras don't work. My car always hit the cameras, can't read the license plate. They can see it was a truck. They can't do anything about that. We get woken up by the bilge alarms and by boats sinking. We found many of boats personally, because there is no services available, I mean, there's no one else. We're the ones that the liveaboards are, we should be called liveaboard security, or security liveaboard, because that's what we're doing. We have to put up with the fact that some of the maintenance things, like on H&I and stuff, that the pumps don't work, and they have not worked ever since I've been here. And yet, that's a service that we were supposed to be provided with. We have broken cleats, and the docks are, the docks need maintenance, we all know this, but we're the ones that bringing it up to Corey and to everyone else, say, hey, did you know such and such is happening, that this float is broken, that this is, we're the ones that's doing the chores of that, and yet we're trying to be charged extra for being a liveaboard fee, because we're living here more than 3 days a week, and if it's for the other 4 days, again, I'm gonna go back to, well, if it's $125 for 30 days and I get three days a week free, that's $18, 18 days, and at $4 a day, that's $72 that we should be charged, based on the fact that we get the 4 days for free, and we don't get anything for free, but 72 would be the fair end of that.
I appreciate that.
I'm gonna go with that, I'll just stop.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. So, thank you for your public comment. I appreciate it, and I am genuinely impressed with your professionalism and your ability to communicate comfortably in this room. Thank you. I'm going to bring it back to the board, and I'm going to start off the discussion. So I have a couple of questions. One of them is, I certainly agree with a lot of the comments that we've received over the years regarding the bathrooms. I think this is one of Susan's ongoing complaints. We have one bathroom that works. Is that accurate? One shower that works?
One shower.
In the men's. One shower in the men's that works. Is that accurate?
Christie, can you?
I cannot comment on that.
Yeah, I don't.
You can go.
Well, I'm hearing it from multiple people here, and I've heard it multiple times over the years. We have one shower that works. I'm not sure what the women's showers are like. Is there one shower that works there?
The women's shower has intermittent hot and freezing cold water.
Well, you pay extra for that. Okay.
I personally like a hot shower.
Okay.
I don't like it to go to freezing cold in the middle of trying to shave my leg. So that's that.
I know you don't shave your legs.
Duly noted, and I sympathize with that.
We'll look into the shower.
Greg, you're losing control of the meeting.
I've already
Point
lost
that out.
control. I've lost control long ago. It's 10 o'clock, it's getting late. We still have a couple more items on the agenda. So Larry, I got two more questions. The liverboard application fee, this is one of those things where I hate these. I literally hate these types of fees, but I pay them all the time because this is part of the life we live in, where we have to make sure that the vessels that we have at our dock are adequately disposing of their waste and aren't leaking fuel. And I doubt that anybody in here, while I say this, I doubt anybody in here is actually doing any of those things, but we have to inspect. Is that your thought behind that fee?
Well, all the existing tenants, they wouldn't pay the application fee because they're already tenants. We're talking about new tenants that would come into play. And so then when you do a new tenant, then you need to do basically, checks on the
Get the new
credit
guys.
checks
Okay.
and these other things.
Okay.
So we saved them $200 right there.
Yeah, see?
Saved $200, right?
All right, so we clarified that. The boat insurance. So right now, we currently don't require we don't require tenants unless they are a
Business.
business to have vessel insurance. Is that correct?
Yes, that is my understanding.
And we don't have any liability for their vessel.
So if their vessel caught on fire and our dock
burned
up, then,
We can have their boat.
We don't have any insurance, except for our own insurance.
So if they burn up 13 boats, everybody's screwed.
So is this an inducement to try to get people to buy insurance?
Yeah, if they have their own insurance, there's no fee. This is the
Yeah.
thing. If you don't have insurance, then you pay the fee.
Kevin, can you buy boat insurance for $100 a month?
No.
No.
40,000 a year.
Can I ask a quick question without going up there? You want to-
Yes, you may.
If somebody doesn't have insurance and they pay the $100 a month, and then their boat catches fire and your dock burns, are you still gonna sue them and try and go after them for the cost of the dock? Or are you saying that $100 a month is their insurance? That at least
No.
covers damage?
No, it's more of a penalty, I believe, and I'll stand corrected. It's a
Absolutely.
penalty to encourage people to have vessel insurance or
So
liability.
it's not $1,200 a month insurance?
No.
No, we're not an insurer.
Yeah.
No, it's an encouragement, it's a stick to encourage you
Right. No,
to have vessel insurance, and yeah. Okay, so I clarified my two questions.
And that insurance that they would be required would be a liability insurance, not like a comprehensive to replace their own boat, but liability for damage to others.
Exactly.
Which I have no idea what that is.
I have a suggestion for everybody here about insurance.
We're not talking about insurance tonight, we're talking
Is it
about.
cheap? Go ahead, say it.
No.
You want to hear it?
How much is it?
It's good information. If you go to Boat US and you sign up with them, and they're hooked up with Geico, and I have a less than $500 policy that covers my boat and you, and a $900,000 oil cleanup. So if you want to give some people some information about where they can get good insurance.
That
Can
would
you
be
post
good.
that?
Pardon?
Post that at the district office.
Okay.
All right, so we've got, everybody at the board has had their fill of this?
No.
You want to talk? Go ahead, Richard.
I heard from the public earlier that there was a tie-in between what is happening here on Woodley Island and the purchase of the pulp mill by the Harbor District. That pulp mill cost us $1. Okay, and yes, it has had some problems and all that. If we did not, I've worked in that pulp mill for almost 30 years. I knew that those tanks were challenged and that there were an imminent danger to this bay. People don't understand how close it was for those tanks to actually, I can attest to one of those tanks, I actually grouted back in the 80s. I didn't do a great job. And it was not built to be holding caustic. And 3 million gallons of caustic liquor that were just sitting over our bay. If we would have had one episode that released all that to our regular drainage system, it would have went in right into Humboldt Bay. We wouldn't even be talking here right now, because there probably wouldn't be that many people hanging around this bay, because it would have took years for this bay to actually come back to life, if that caustic would have all landed. So tying that, no, that was something that the Harbor District needed to do for the safety of the people of Humboldt. And I think we're very fortunate that the Harbor District and my fellow commissioners took that chance. And yes, it's not, maybe not making money, it will in the future. We've upgraded with the monies that we were able to garner through new market tax credits to put walls and fences and everything there, and we have 80 employees. Hopefully we'll get up to 200, and that's what the pulp mill had at one time. So I just want to remind the people that that wasn't part of this, and we're very fortunate that we actually were able to purchase that and get to clean up all those liquors gone.
Thank you, Richard. Patrick?
I'm not okay.
5 to 10.
I'm going to vote no.
Any discussion on why?
I just think we have to do more to lower our costs and really get serious, and it's just like if we just keep running the fund up and not dealing with the essential problems that bring our cost factors down, we have to get our own staff running that dredge. We have to ship that stuff into the holes on the small peninsula. And I'm just afraid that if we just keep running the same routine, that we're just going to basically avoid the most critical questions, and that is the cost factors that we're dealing with. And we spent 3 years on permitting for the channel at King Salmon, and not a shovel full of dirt has come out of there. And so, I mean, we're in gridlock still, and the numbers are just going to go up if we continue to use the bucket dredge polluting system. That is just going to be cost prohibitive. And so, also the Army Corps has to dredge this into reach. It changes the dynamics and the contours of the entire channel. We have to get on them. We have to consider this a matter of urgency. It's been 10 years since they dredged in here. And so, I understand that the fishing community is really distressed. The fish populations are stressed. The oceans are stressed. And I don't think that there's a bottomless pit of clients to fill our marina. And I think at some point, you push that cost factor up, people are going to jump. And then you got holes, and then you don't have the revenue you anticipated. You usually don't like Kent's arguments, but I'll buy that one. And so that's where I'm at. I'm so frustrated. May not be fully defensible in terms of fiduciary responsibility. I vote no.
So one second, please. So no on everything, on the entire packet?
Well, that's
or are there specifics that you would?
It's K,
Oh, wow.
and the whole thing is wadded together. And so I'm not sure that sitting right here, right now, I'm ready to tease out all the things or make the judgments on it, especially given the lateness of the hour. So,
okay,
I'm just
okay. Thank you.
It's been quite the meeting, and I appreciate everything everyone's had to say. And I appreciate what you just said there, Pat. I mean, I could talk about dredging, I could talk about Redwood Marine Terminal 2, there's a million things going on here. I mean, I'll reiterate what Richard said. I wasn't on the commission at that time, but I was doing a lot of environmental work on the bay. We were in a drought cycle when the Harbor District bought it. The next year was an El Nino year. That year would have overtopped those storage containers, and that pulp liquors would have been overtopped.
They were at the top.
So that would have, that next year, if we had waited, or if the Harbor District at that time had waited a year, it would have been in the bay, and this would have been an entirely different conversation. Unfortunately, rates will have to go up. I mean, I don't think there's any way around it, the cost of dredging and the cost of maintenance, but I think we can't throw everything on a few people to try and balance the books. And this isn't even balancing the books anyway. Like people are saying, increasing rates on 12 people is not going to do a whole lot for our bottom line. We're in a very tough situation, though. We do need to increase rates. It's been a long time since rates have been increased. It's also been a long time since dredging happened for many, many, many different reasons. And again, I wasn't here for a lot of these years, and I see a lot of hard work being done to try and rectify that. The staff is working continuously to try and find ways, to try and find new funding sources, to new methodology, the way that they were able to leverage the dredging of the Chevron dock to help with our mobilization. Someone talked about our costs benefiting the Chevron dock. It was actually Chevron doing dredging that benefited Woodley Island Marina. But my recommendation at this point, in a very late hour, is, this is all these charts. We have, the option A's, option B's, different things talked about last time, a whole bunch of different charges. Some of the charges, I think, increasing the transient charge, I think makes perfect sense. That shouldn't be the same as the people who have year-long and have been here multi-year contracts, but I would like to see, and I hate to suggest it, but I would like to see a subcommittee and with maybe some representatives from the marina, from the liverboards and commercial, to come together and come up with some realistic situations with the realization that rates are gonna have to go up, but it needs to be something that I think the community has to have a little buy-in and input on as well, but not to drag it out also. And we're talking about not doing this, we're not gonna do this November 1st anyway, so if we can have a meeting or two and bring this back to the next meeting in November. And then, but,
There's no board meetings in November, December.
we haven't voted on that. Yeah, we haven't even gotten to that, we haven't gotten to that item, but we're gonna have a board meeting in November and December, but, so that's my suggestion. I don't think, I'm not ready to just do a blanket yes vote on every single fee in this. I could pick and choose a few out, but I don't think I want to do this at this hour, and so my recommendation is to have a subcommittee and bring it back to a soon.
Who made the original motion?
We have a motion in a second, we can vote on it.
I don't think we ever had a motion on this resolution.
Yeah, so it's a motion to table, Stephen.
There's
been no motion
to
adopt.
How long have we been discussing this for this long? You let me do that?
You
Start over.
You ran.
Start Yeah, so I did not make a motion on that, that's still discussion, but should I?
I would, yes. I would understand that one.
Okay, so I make a motion that we table this item and put together a subcommittee to meet on it. And I don't know how we do it with inviting participation from the marine tenants, but trying to do
We can leave that up to the subcommittee.
have the subcommittee decide that. So, okay, I make a motion that we table this item and appoint a subcommittee to deal with it and bring it back to a soon meeting.
In November, the November meeting.
Bring it back to the November meeting.
Correct.
Whenever that date shall be.
That's your motion.
Thank you for telling me what my motion is.
Second.
And I got a motion and a second. I am, any discussion from the audience? Seeing none, thank you.
Would that be approximately, Greg?
Probably gonna be the week before the Thanksgiving holiday.
But we're gonna get to that in two items.
Well, the reason I say that is provided we are able to start on time, which doesn't look too successful at this time, but we have a crab season coming up potentially.
How about, and that's the 15th, right?
No, here would be December 1st.
We'll have a meeting before December 1st, I guarantee
I
that.
understand that, but we have,
Prep
say
to
the
get to
week
December.
week ahead of time is a no-go for a lot of the commercial fishermen in here.
So the subcommittee meeting will probably be next week or something then.
Yep. And it'll be before you guys leave.
And the second Thursday.
I hope. I hope you don't leave that soon.
Some people are planning on going to the Bay Area, but to be honest, I don't think any of it's gonna start on time. We just had an episode on the beach out here recently that's going to be a setback.
Yeah, oh, yeah, I see that, yeah. All right. Seeing no more comments from the audience? No. I bring it back to the board. I have a motion, a second. Any discussion on the motion?
And it's no longer a resolution.
No, it's a table. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Thank you for that, you guys. Wow. It ain't over, but that was painful, but it's gonna get painful again, so. Item number 11A, authorize the release of a request for proposals to lease the district's fields landing boatyard site operation.
So moved.
Second.
Hold on a second, you gotta let public comment in before you make a motion on this.
No, we make a motion
Now-
first, then we
now
take
it's
the
a
And then we
public
do public comment.
Motion?
Yeah, yes, sir, yes, sir.
You just allowed a lot of discussion before we made a motion.
Yeah, that was a mistake, that was a mistake on my side,
You-
that was a mistake on my part.
There'll be public comment.
I apologize, you'll have plenty of time to comment on this. So we have a motion, second, board, any discussion from the board?
I think this is a good idea.
I have no.
Any comments on this item from the
Yeah.
audience?
I go to a lot of city council meetings, a lot of board meetings.
I do too.
Let me finish.
Thank you.
I never have seen a motion to approve something before allowing the public to comment. You talk about it, then we talk about it, or however you do it. We talk about it, then you talk about it. But to make a motion first, I think that violates the Brown Act, in my view. Secondly, the issue for us is releasing an RFP that could potentially transfer bargaining at work. There's somebody out there right now. So if you release a proposal that transfers bargaining at work, take somebody out of there and put somebody else in there to do work, that would be a violation. There's a case, it's the public case, Herb case, which I'd have you to send both of you or send you to the general counsel. There's two cases actually that says you cannot transfer bargaining work. Not only the effects and the impact and effect, but it's the decision to transfer bargaining work, which is technically trying to contract out or transfer bargaining work. So I caution you on this, something that's going to be raised.
Larry, would you like to discuss the proposal or the RFP?
We would like to put out a request for proposals to lease the Fields Landing Boatyard, and very similar to like we did with Shelter Cove and also the wind energy, is we're waiting for people to come back to us with their proposal. And it could be a public-private partnership, it could be in a variety of different forms. We don't know exactly who's going to be doing what services or how it would be done, but at this point, we're looking to put out a request for proposals to take over the Fields Landing Boatyard. In essence, kind of the bottom line is really a lot of the things that we've discussed before is that we're spread out all over the place. Before we were in Shelter, all the way from Shelter Cove to everywhere. We need to consolidate our services in order to be more efficient and not be spread out. Our staff right now is overloaded, our maintenance staff in particular, and that we really need to consolidate into the Small Peninsula and Woodley Island Marina, and that's where we want to be. We'll still be in the South Bay because we have to monitor and do other things, but the day-to-day operations. And so that's what we're looking to do.
I think a public-private partnership is very, very appropriate in this regard, and that the services rendered will probably be improved with more focused attention from a capitalist.
Any other board members' comments? I'll take the audience again.
Busy night. I don't know exactly what's going on. Some of that area is leased now to a private company, and the functions that aren't, you're planning on leasing to the same or another private company? Is that, 'cause I haven't heard about it. And I'm not saying that I'm against any of it, is that what's happening? The whole shebang down there is gonna be run by somebody else and they're gonna pay you a lease fee?
Well, at one point in time, it was all under a lease to a private company.
I was around.
Yeah, and then that fell apart. We took it back over, and then we leased part of it out. And the goal was when we went the last time was to lease the entire thing out. It would still have conditions in the proposal to allow for what's the term?
Self-service?
Self-service.
Yeah, I understand. That, I don't have a problem with that, I think it makes sense, but remember this, maintenance. You still own it, regardless of who leases it. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I would not want to send an engineer down there and look at that, whatever they call that the travel lift drives out on. You know, I've been around a long time, steel, sometimes it looks bad, and sometimes it's not as bad as it looks. Sometimes it's worse than it looked bad. And those are some heavy-duty beams that are out there with cement forms on top of them. Just the part you can see looks bad. That's another reason why I don't bring that big boat down here anymore. It's one of the biggest things you guys have ever moved down there, not the biggest.
Mine is.
Pardon me?
Mine is.
Yeah. Well, weight-wise, I don't know. I would argue that.
140 tons.
Yeah. Well, it's.
Let's not argue boat sizes.
It's never, yeah. Mine's bigger than yours. Hey, it's never had an ounce of maintenance done to it.
That's not true. The district has gone to great extents to upgrade the systems. They're monitored better than they've ever been. The travel lift is better than it's been since it was new. They put a lot of money.
I'm not talking about the lift. I'm talking about the portion of the property that the lift drives
You're
out.
right, I shouldn't have said anything. I apologize.
And I'm not an expert on it either, and I don't think he is either. I don't know that engineers have ever looked at that, but I just want to remind you that it doesn't relinquish you of the maintenance that you're doomed to have to do.
You're right.
It looks like an expensive project out there. Thank you.
Any other comments from the audience on the RFP proposal? Seeing none, I'm going to bring it back to the board. Any other?
Make sure that we maintain affordable self-service for fishermen.
Right.
That's,
Right.
however we
Yeah.
can in negotiation.
And the public comments that we took have been part of discussions and definitely top of mind. We're not trying to cut any jobs out. We're not trying to change anything there. We're just trying to be efficient and look for ideas of management there. So this is a request for proposal. It doesn't mean we're going to
That's correct.
take it. Anything that comes at us, we might say no to everything.
That's correct.
And there might be ways to accommodate things that look intractable at this point.
Right.
So I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. What? We're talking about seaweed next.
Seaweed and sushi?
Can we
Go
put anything
together.
else in front of seaweed? Item 11B, Humboldt State University's pilot seaweed culture project.
Okay, I have a presentation on this, be about 45 minutes or so.
Perfect.
And then we do have a couple
Take
people.
your time.
We have a couple people that are the prominent.
So move.
We have a motion, do I have a second?
Give me a second, Richard. Stephen, can I get a second?
What am I second?
For seaweed?
Yes, you can.
Yes, for seaweed.
Yes.
Gotta have it.
Second that.
Sunamono salads.
Oh, this is
Take it away. Are you going now?
Yeah, I'm going, yeah.
cool. Fast forward.
You have any pictures of fish or seaweed or anything?
No, I'm gonna go quickly, but I'm gonna go. So.
Hey, you can't leave yet, David. There's
That's
good
how that
stuff
works.
going on now.
I have to leave because Leroy said I need to talk to him.
Oh, you want to talk to me, Leroy?
I thought you were staring a hole in me, but then I realized the spot was right above me.
Take it away, Adam, sorry.
But all right, so as the board's aware, the Harbor District has pre-permitted 21 acres for shellfish and seaweed culture out on the peninsula. There's 14 acres of that still available, 7 acres are leased. As you approved at the last board meeting, we currently have a solicitation for letters of interest out, which is due November 15th. However, as I also talked about at the last board meeting, I've been working with Humboldt State University and their partners for some time on a lease out there for about 0.6 acre pilot seaweed project. The project's name is the Longline Culture of Red Seaweed in the Pacific Northwest. They have grant funding from the Agricultural Research Institute. They've gone through all the steps they need to in order to enter into a lease with us. So the final step of the pre-permitting project to actually get something in the water is to have a culture description and eelgrass avoidance plan approved by us and the Coastal Commission staff, and they've gone through that step. They're proposing a one-year project. It could go longer if it's successful and they want to do more research, or if it could transition into something commercial. I'll let them talk about the purpose, but the ultimate purpose is to test growing seaweed and see what can be commercially viable, to sort of start paving the way towards something that could be commercial. That's what it looks like. Anchors, buoys on the top, and then with the seaweed hanging down on connected to some lines. Just the aerial view. This is where we've identified that we thought was the best site for it. This is subtitle site 2, if you're looking at the upper left map, on the outside edge of that, sort of a long, skinny 0.6 acre thing. I think it's going to be well compatible with potential for flupsies and stuff, actually provide maybe some shelter and stuff to put flupsies on the inside of that, or whatever other uses might come along. 2 recommendations. One is to authorize staff to finish the negotiation on this with Humboldt State University and execute a lease. The second one is, because we do have other interests coming along fairly rapidly for leases in these areas through our solicitation, to sort of allow us to expedite execution of those leases, to authorize staff to go ahead and execute leases. Not any lease, but just leases on this subtitle Mariculture pre-permitting project program.
Regarding just seaweed?
No, it could be for shellfish too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is this for sushi or restoration?
It could be for food or for pharmaceuticals or just, I think, a number of things. Yeah.
Can I ask a question on the second part? Because wouldn't leases typically have to come to the board for approval? So what is...
Oh, you do?
I do.
Is there...
Wait, we might
Yeah.
look like Ryan
This is the first time seeing it. I do have a concern about that. We could allow staff to execute the lease subject to ratification by the board at the next regular meeting, but in terms of actually executing the lease, at this point, I'd ask the board just to consider option number 1 for this particular lease, and then number 2, I can have a discussion with staff and bring it back for other options to expedite the process.
I'd like to amend my motion.
And I'll amend my second, yeah.
Okay, so staff, this action is to allow, number 1, authorize staff to negotiate and execute with Humboldt State for pilot seaweed culture project. That's my motion.
And you amended it?
Yeah, he's fine with that.
The second is in accord.
Okay. So we have a modified motion.
HSU is here, I don't know if you want to.
She's not HSU.
Can I make one comment before HSU presents? Thank you so much for being here and waiting so long, and in the future, maybe when we have outside presenters and other items, could we put them further up? I feel bad for you although it probably was entertaining, but thank you for...
I don't feel bad.
Our partnerships with Humboldt are always so so enriching.
So you can relax, we didn't have a presentation as such.
Introduce yourself first.
But my name is Karen Gray. I work for a non-profit called Green Wave, and we're all about shellfish and seaweed farms growing together. And they're based on the East Coast. I'm in California, or the West Coast outpost, as I like to say. And the fact that we've waited a few hours to get your blessing on a lease, where elsewhere in California, well, I would probably be working for years. So, because, our friends at the Coastal Commission. But I want to thank the Harbor District, because these subtitle lease areas that we were talking about, that's like Red Tank Dock, right? And
Yep.
their name and Overward Taylor. These areas that were approved a long time ago, as the staff report said, 21 acres. And I was able to find out that there are these gold mines sitting there for a seaweed farm operation. And this is Rafael Reyes, who's a fisheries professor from Humboldt State, and he is fish guide. He would rather be doing a fish farm, but right now, because of the way things are, he wanted to do we're doing a seaweed pilot. So the fact that these leases are available, and our goal with this project, and thanks to Adam for his foresight to include algae on this permit, is that we want to test and grow and see what can work here. But we envisage a seaweed industry could quite easily kick off in Humboldt Bay. And I know we've talked a lot about money and fees and dredging and sources of revenue, but it's like this is a potential in California that's being missed. On the East Coast, there are at least 25, 30 seaweed farm operations, mad as it may sound, that are actually growing and doing really well, and we would like to see that industry kick off in Humboldt Bay. Raphael is also going to be able to use this farm as an aquaculture training facility, if you will, where because we'll have access to students who will be willing to work on the farm and gain some work experience because it is a new industry. So we really see that although this is as Adam said, a small, less than 1 acre pilot to begin with, and it is only for a year, that was what the funding would allow. We would like to see a larger project grow over time, but we want to start small and show that it works, and we'd be happy to come back and we could give some kind of presentation or report to share our findings and share what we learned and what went wrong and what went right. And share that as a series success story. So if you have any questions, we have our graduate student, Erica. She'll actually be publishing a paper on the findings. So I think that it was your last hearing. You asked for requests for proposals. People were interested in the lease, and I know already that we've had several other people interested in proposing seaweed farms here. So it would be initially for feed. But also in this area, we are looking at restoration. Our goal help needs help. Just to answer to a comment we heard earlier, that it would be, there are many uses for seaweed. But yeah, for now, it's just for red seaweed, so Glaciaria and dulse, because that's what's written on the permit. We would like to show that this works and then come back in the future to request that we could add kelp to be grown on the seaweed permit, and that would help us with restoration in that area too. Have a safe vision, but as I said, we really appreciate your support and recommendation for us.
Well, I was really disappointed when Persiforms withdrew because they were going to grow black cod and then grow the seaweed as a byproduct, kind of in a stacked functions. And so I'm really happy, Raphael. I've worked a lot with Raphael on these projects, the ones we're trying to bring to fruition. And so I'm glad you're following through on this. And I think, seaweed, there's a huge market for it worldwide. And so this is got a lot of growth potential. So thank you both for pushing this forward.
I get to talk now? I'm stoked that you're utilizing this piece of property, this lease, the permit, and that you're growing seaweed. It's something I've known Karen for a while, and I've watched her in different areas of the state. This is a project that's taking off in a variety of locations around this country, around the world. There's a market for seaweed. It's huge. It grows fast. It will grow well here. There's a couple of questions that they need to answer. They will answer them. This has the ability to really potentially be another hit out of this bay, and I'm excited for him to start. And thank you, Raphael, for. I mean, he's just taking care of business. I've had several of his students work for me, and I've hired them, and I still have them, and they're awesome. So I'm looking forward to this partnership, and so I want to put this to a vote. Any other discussion? Any other discussion from the board?
We had somebody in the front row.
I want a short question, and I don't know. Have y'all, it just popped in my mind, isn't there the purple earth issue with seaweed eradication and such? I mean, are y'all factoring in the potential for invasive species when you start doing these farms? Is that a possibility, or?
Yeah, that's an offline, but
it's a floating system, so urchins probably wouldn't be.
We don't have urchins in the bay.
Urchins or any other, I mean, I just use that because I was thinking of, introducing kelp. So,
Yeah, only
are there any, my concern would be that,
only local
have y'all
species.
factored in?
Only local species.
Locally collected native species.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, all of that has definitely been considered, though. disease and
Yeah,
invasives.
we get a disease-free bay, and nothing can be introduced that would
Okay.
jeopardize that.
So, I will call the question then. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Item 11A, canceling our November and December board meetings. It's become perfectly clear that we're not going to be able to avoid meetings in November and December, as much as it sounds really,
So I'd recommend a special meeting on the 14th of November, which is the second Thursday of the month.
Yeah, so second Thursday instead of fourth for November and December. So move. Does it require board action? Or is this by decree?
Yeah, it would.
Okay, so can we move the meetings
so I
to the second
second.
Thursday?
So there needs to be a cancellation of the regular meetings and then the setting of the special.
Okay, I move that we cancel both regularly scheduled fourth Thursday meetings in November and December and reschedule for second Thursdays in both months respectively.
I'll second.
so that would put it on the
14th?
The second Thursday would be the 14th.
14th of November, and what's the one in December? I don't-
The 12th.
And the 12th.
14 and 12.
All right, so, any discussion?
Just that when I was talking to Larry, I thought we had done this when we set the meetings for the year.
I thought we
And
did too.
So like, maybe when we set, because we'll do that again in January, setting the meetings for the year, let's just take care of November and December then, because it happens every year.
Right.
November and
Yeah.
December happen every year.
In January, I'm going to be bringing back that ordinance.
Now,
for
we still
consideration.
don't have board members who want to trade turkey for meetings.
I'll give you a turkey if I want to
Okay.
do a couple meetings.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any discussion from the audience? Any discussion from the board?
Thank you.
All in favor? All in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any administrative, or motion passes, any administrative or emergency, nothing?
Nothing.
Do we have anything else to talk about? Meeting adjourned, 10:30, that's